Okay, I'd like to open the zoning board of adjustments meeting for June 15, 2026 at 6 p.m. in the Great Hall. Minutes for June 1st, 2026. I have a correction. I made a mistake. And on the second page, in and around line 71, 72, line 72, the date of 2/14 in both cases should be 1987 and 1970. That's the only correction I had. And I let the applicant know, because he asked where I got 2014. I took it off of...
It was the other application. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Suzette, I just had two misspellings.
You have misspellings?
There's I'm not voting on these minutes because I wasn't here, but I just wanted to point out on line 66, my first name is spelt wrong. And then on line, this is page 2, I should say. Page 2, line 66, my first name spelt wrong. And then on line 68, it says Doda. It should be Doda with a D, so 2 Ds, D-O-D-A.
Okay. In the future, if a misspelling changes, or a wrong spelling would change the context and the meaning of what was being expressed, of course it should be corrected, but just typo kind of spelling, I wouldn't bother with, so.
Okay.
In the future, so. All right.
You can always just email it
Anybody have
to.
anything else?
I'll email it to you and Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Motion to approve as amended?
Okay,
Second.
second. All those in favor signify by aye.
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 Chuck and Suzanne.
I'll abstain because I wasn't
Chuck and
there.
Suzanne.
You're abstaining because you weren't here.
Yeah.
Brody abstains, he wasn't here. Okay, so the minutes of June 1st were accepted as amended, correct? And so I'll do the roll call. Maybe misunderstood Kate's email. Maybe she won't make it, but I'll just do this until we get to the case. I'm Suzanne Ryan, chairman, and Chuck Sumner is to my left. He's vice chairman and clerk. And then we have Jody Persons. Kate McMahon currently is missing in action. We have Brody Deshays, and let's see. So we have 4 voting members currently, and we have for alternates Nancy Sabat-Stroman. That's how it was in the minutes, Nancy. I know. And Howard Lowe. They're alternates. They will not be voting tonight. So the voting members are Ryan, Sumner, Persons, and Deshays. And I don't know about Kate.
I think you should probably appoint somebody until she comes.
Well, I kind of hate to do that in the middle of an application.
I think we should do it now.
Yeah. Well, I mean now,
and
but
then
if
when she comes.
Well, let me just talk about the order of business. And I didn't introduce the staff present, I'm sorry. Planning, our Director of Planning and Development is Jeffrey Hindeleiter, and Shauna Saunders is Circuit Rider Planner from Lakes Region Planning Commission. And the order of business tonight will go in the order of the agenda, but when I open the public hearing, the applicant and representative will speak first, followed by abutters and public. All will have a chance for second opportunity to address the board. And if we need, we'll do a third and fourth time. Everybody will get a chance to speak. But after which we vote to go into our deliberative session, there'll be no further public comment. The public comment period will be closed. And it will take a special vote of the board and a special reason to reopen it. It typically will not be reopened. It has to be extenuating circumstance. So I've gone through the announcements. Well, all right, I guess I will then appoint Sabat for the first case, and then if Kate doesn't get here, I'll appoint Howard for the next case, so we'll alternate. So Sabat will be a voting member tonight. And the first case on the agenda is, to be continued. It is from Poplar Island, and the applicant has submitted to the planner, Jeffrey, a written request that the matter, I'll read it. The above referenced matter is slated for a vote on the application for a special exception by a full board on Monday, the 15th. Given the present circumstances in this matter, with the understanding that a building permit may be issued, I got a tick on me.
I wasn't expecting that. I'm getting the heebie-jeebies.
Killer.
Checking myself all the time.
Put that in the minutes. Above and beyond the call of duty. Given the present circumstances in this matter, with the understanding that a building permit may be issued upon the town receiving certain documentation from John Chase, he's the builder, as it's pertaining to the extent of the vertical expansion of this proposed structure, we respectfully request that the matter before the board on June 15th be continued to the next scheduled board meeting. If the building permit is issued, it is anticipated that the application will be withdrawn. Jeffrey, can you address this a little more? I don't understand the part about the building permit will be issued.
Sure. So there's a lot of history with this proposal. I'll just bring it right up to today. What the applicant has worked on is a proposal that is under the 25% expansion requirement for vertical non-conforming expansions. The ZBA hears proposals when the percentage is over 25%. They are looking for some adjustments to create a proposal that's under 25%, just under, but still it's under 25%. And due to that, there would no longer be a requirement for ZBA approval because special exemption is not required. I've been working with the town attorneys, the applicant attorneys on this, and all are in agreement with this approach. All think that legally this is the best way to go about it, to also keep the town out of potential legal issues. And we're working on some of the final steps to button that approach up right now, and we should be there by the end of this week.
Okay, thank you. So what I'd like to do is, I think is the correct thing, this was continued from May 4th meeting to tonight. And so in case what may happen doesn't happen, I would continue this meeting to July 20th, 26. So I'd make a motion to continue Poplar Island case, whatever the number is, case 15 SE 25. I would continue that to July 20th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to put Kate, I'm going to remove.
I'm voting on this, so I will get back to her.
Sure.
What did
She already appointed me, so I vote, but then the next
voted to
case,
continue.
it's Kate.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I'm going to excuse Sabette from being an alternate voting member because Kate arrived at 6:12. So, Kate, you're on board now. Okay, thank you. All right, so then,
Better than never, right?
the next order of business is Taylor Community Bay Street Tax Map Lot 203, 62, 63, 64, 65. The zoning is Bay Street Limited Business District, case number 2026, special exception 003, under section 175-107 of the zoning ordinance for establishing an elderly housing use consisting of 4 residential duplexes for a total of 8 units. And this is a revised or modified application, so we're treating it as a new application. And what we typically do is have the applicant present first, state their name and so forth, and then the abutters or the public will comment, and the board holds their questions until everybody's done, so we get all out on the table and hear everything, both sides, and then we'll ask our questions.
Sorry, say that louder. Do you want the board turned towards you or towards the audience?
I didn't.
Or towards us or the audience? Well, we need to be able to see it for sure, so.
We have that in our packet, so it would be nice if the TV could pick it up. Does-
He can get it.
He raises his hand, I guess he says.
Gets it from that direction.
Yeah.
He's got a camera behind us.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay, great, thank you.
We can go.
All right, so,
Great,
please,
good evening.
hi.
Seth McClellan from Taylor Community, and I just wanted to come in front of you because we realized that Taylor, we haven't done a very good job explaining what we are and what we do. So I just wanted to go over that a little bit before we get into the nitty-gritty of the actual project. Taylor Community, we're a nonprofit. We're what our business calls a continuing care retirement community or a life care retirement community. We are a local organization that we're based out of Laconia, but we're only around the lake here in Wolfeboro, and Laconia and Meredith, acting as a continuing care retirement community. And what that is not a conventional nursing home or something like that. We offer a continuum of care to our clients, and what that does is they purchase a contract with us that is governed by the Board of Insurance, so that's a little different than a normal nursing home. So we always get some questions about that, what we do, and those contracts protect the care that our residents will get. So over the course of their life, if they run out of means, we then pick up the cost of that care, and that's why we're a nonprofit, and that's what we call charitable care, in the tune of a couple $1 million a year across all of our organizations. So that's kind of what we do and why we do it, and then this project and how this project fits into it. I was talking about that continuum of care. This is we're proposing 8 units. We had 5, I think, before you when we made the sidewalk. We had 5 duplexes, 10 units on there. We dropped that down to 8, mainly because we had gotten some feedback from neighbors, from abutters, and that's mostly just to be good neighbors and try to see it kind of fits into the neighborhood. So we dropped that down to the 4 duplexes. There was also some question on, at one point it was said that we were going to be busing folks into this property. That's not true. We're not going to be busing them from all over the state, all over other campuses too here. So I just wanted to clear that up. But as we talked about the 8 units, 4 duplexes, we think fit into the neighborhood, and that's kind of what we're going for. Questions about that stuff for us, or clarify the project at all?
Gonna go through the.
Sure, yeah. So, Brian Bouchard, our legal counsel, will get into some of that with you guys. I just kind of wanted to clarify what we are, because there's a lot of questions about that, so.
Can everyone hear me? Can everyone, is that better? Can you guys hear me? Is that better? Okay. Bless you.
Bless you.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Bouchard. I am an attorney at Sheehan, Finney, Bass & Green in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It is my pleasure to be representing Taylor Community before this board tonight. Before the board, there are two, we think, companion applications for Taylor Community. First is a special exception application, and the second is an appeal from the planning board about whether duplexes are permitted on this property and whether the zoning ordinance permits one duplex per lot or one duplex per acre. But there's also the special exception. I do want to note, as Seth has just noted as well, that Taylor had originally proposed for its special exception application to have 5 duplexes on this lot. And it's 4 lots that are going to be merged together, approximately 4.02 acres. And Taylor had proposed putting 5 duplexes here. And after hearing from an abutter who's here tonight, Taylor heard those concerns and decided that, you know, really a better use of this land and one that is more neighborly to the abutters around it would be 4 duplexes instead of 5. And I just want to pause on that for a minute. I've been doing this for a long while, as I'm sure many of you have. And it is rare for a developer to reduce what it proposes for the property and what the zoning ordinance allows for the property in order to accommodate neighbor concerns, abutter concerns, and in order to accommodate really what is, you know, the best use for this land. And it is really unique to have a property developer and a property owner so attuned to what an abutter has concerns over. As I mentioned, the relief tonight, the requested relief tonight is binary. We are requesting a special exception application. If the board grants that, then we would sort of table the appeal. But from our perspective, those requests are really sort of 2 sides of the same coin. We had applied for a site plan application for 4 duplexes on the merged lot, and the planning board rejected that application, saying that the ordinance permits only 1 duplex per lot, not per
Excuse
acre.
me, can we stick to
Yep.
the first item on the agenda, which is the special exception?
I'm going to pivot right back to that. I just want to iterate that sort of how we got here and that we filed that appeal because we don't think there was support in the zoning ordinance for what the planning board had decided, but we had filed that appeal and then we had filed for the special exception because the town had encouraged us that perhaps elderly housing would be a better avenue for solving the density questions that we raised, and so that's where I'm going to pivot back to the special exception. So one more point about the special exception and where we are before I get into the 8 criteria for a special exception, and that is to note sort of where this area is. I know the board has done a view of the lot, and the Bay Street Limited Business District and where this property is located is really, it's neither commercial nor residential. There are some single-family homes around it, but at the same time, directly across the street is Taylor Community's Back Bay campus. And directly across the street where the crosswalk is the aquatic center and a recreational center for Taylor Community. If the zoning board looks out and has a wider lens on this slightly, even within a 1-mile radius, going down Bay Street, there's the Sawmill Marina, there's Maker's Mill, there's Top Gear Automotive, there's CMB Auto Detailing, and there's the Wolf Trap Grill and Raw Bar, as among other businesses in the area. So this property is not located in a residential enclave. It is located in the Bay Street Limited Business District. And the master plan for the town, which we're going to talk about as one of the criteria, says that one of the purposes for this district is to have mixed uses and to have increased density, which we believe this complements what the master plan has contemplated. So without further ado, I will go through the criteria for a special exception. The first being, though, that, I guess preliminarily, another preliminary comment, is that there was questions from the board as to whether or not Taylor Community could qualify for elderly housing under the zoning ordinance. And the definition that the town has is that elderly housing is housing principally used and designed for and adopted for by elderly citizens 55 years of age and older, and complying with design requirements of architectural barrier-free design code for the state of New Hampshire, as amended by licensed and appropriate agencies. Meaning that there's three criteria. You have to have housing for individuals who are 55 or older. 2, there has to be architectural standards that are met. And 3, that the development is regulated by New Hampshire agencies, including NHDES. Now, across the street in Taylor's main community, Taylor holds 2 licenses under RSA 152. One of those licenses is for assisted living, and another license is for a nursing home. There is an argument that what Taylor is proposing to build here doesn't fall with either of those licenses because it is independent living. If you have housing for independent living, the state does not have an interest in regulating that because there is no assistance being provided as you would in a traditional nursing home. However, because of Taylor's structure, it is still, in its insurance program, it is still regulated by the New Hampshire Department of Insurance. So from that perspective, Taylor does meet the definition of elderly housing. It is housing for individuals 55 years and older. It has to meet the architectural barrier design codes, and its entire program is regulated by the New Hampshire Department of Insurance. So, with respect to the 8 criteria for a special exception, when talking about a special exception, I think it's important to look at special exceptions not like we're looking at a variance. Because a special exception is something that is permitted within the zoning ordinance, but it is permitted in a way where the town wants to have a bit more oversight as to how it's developed, right? Where a variance is not permitted, but you're requesting relief to deviate from the ordinance. And it's important to consider the application not in the abstract, but compared to what else is permitted by right in this district. So, of note, in the Bay Street Limited Business District under under section of the ordinance 175-144, and that is for multifamily units, which a duplex is not considered a multifamily unit because it doesn't have 3 dwelling units in it. But this area in the Bay Street Limited Business District permits apartments, residential apartments, which would be considered multifamily. And under 175-144, it's important to note that that allows Taylor, if it so wanted to have 2 buildings per acre, and each one of those buildings is entitled to have 5 dwelling units within it. Okay? So that is the standard that we are looking towards. This obviously is a significantly less intense use of that land. We are talking about 4 buildings on 4 acres, and each one of those buildings only has 2 dwelling units compared to what would be permitted in a multifamily development, which would be 8 dwellings, and each one of those dwellings is allowed to have 5 dwelling units in it. Significantly less intense. So the first criteria is that the specific site is appropriate for the location for the proposed use and structure. And we think that is absolutely the case. This is not elderly housing that is coming out of nowhere. This is directly across the street from an existing elderly housing facility within the town. It is an extension of what already exists. And from our perspective, having 1 duplex per lot for a total of 8 units is substantially less intense than what is permitted for residential apartments on this property. Criteria B is that their immediate neighborhood impact, that the proposal is not detrimental, injurious, obnoxious, or offensive to abutting properties, in particular to the neighborhood in general. Typical negative impacts which extend beyond the proposed site include excessive trip generation, noise, vibration, dust, glare, heat, smoke, fumes, gas, odors, and inappropriate hours of operation. I mean, we are talking here about residences and residence for individuals who are 55 years or older. Will there be people pulling into their house to park? Yes, I mean, people over 55 do drive. But we are not talking about the type of development that is going to have a negative impact on neighbors. Again, it is across the street from an existing elderly housing facility. This is for independent living, and it is not going to have any heat, glare, smoke, fumes, or anything of that nature that would cause an adverse impact to neighbors. And again, we've reduced this from 5 duplexes to 4 duplexes. There's no hours of operation to consider here because we're talking about people just living their lives. Criterion C, that there'll be no undue nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian or vehicle traffic, including the location and design of access ways and off-street parking. There's already a crosswalk that exists from where the property is going across the Taylor community. I believe the technical review board has asked that Taylor straighten that or adjust it in some way, which they're willing to do. Each duplex has a garage underneath and its own outdoor parking space. In terms of overflow parking, there is only 4 visitor parking areas, right? This is not a situation where there would be a massive parking lot with 10, 20, 30 cars in it. We're only talking about 4 parking spaces for people who don't live there. If you do live there, you have a garage space and you have a space right next to your unit. There was one neighbor that raised concern about snowbanks and where snowbanks are going to be located and whether that would create an issue. The snowbanks that were referenced on the plan, I believe they were put there at the request of NHDES just to show where snowbank and snow removal could be placed. Those can really be put anywhere. It's not like there's a designated spot saying, you know, thou shalt only put snow here. Snow can also be moved off the property if it becomes an issue. Criterion D, the availability of public services and facilities, that the following services and facilities are available and adequate to serve the needs of the use as designed and proposed. 1, sewer. 2, water. 3, stormwater drainage, fire protection, police protection, streets, parks, and schools. The town's DPW has confirmed that this property can, and these duplexes can be hooked up to sewer, and that is the plan. The property is also subject to an alteration of terrain permit from NHDES, so any issues with runoff, degradation have also been addressed by the state already. Because we're talking about elderly housing, it does not seem that there would be a concern about schools and parks or any type of congestion associated with the like. And the town's fire chief, I believe, has already signed off and reviewed that the turnaround there is adequate for emergency vehicles. Criterion E, the appropriateness of the site and consideration, the parking scheme, traffic circulation, open space, fencing, screening, landscaping, signage, commercial vehicles, and lighting impact. This is going to be dark sky compliant lighting. The only issue that we've heard so far about lighting is about the 4 parking spaces. That can be addressed through screening as needed. Taylor had originally proposed that those parking spaces actually face towards the water, but the town's technical review board actually advocated that they face the direction that they're facing. But again, that's something that can be addressed through screening and the like. And we're only dealing with 4 parking spaces. There is an adequate parking scheme because each one of these units has, again, a parking space and a garage dedicated to it. Additionally, there's a site plan that has been prepared by a quite reputable company, Du Bois King, and we don't think that the planning board is going to have any issues with the site plan. The reason we're here is that the planning board had issues and questions about the density for the site. Criterion F, immediate neighborhood integrity, that the historical uses and established use patterns will be weighed with recent changes and trends to the neighborhood. Again, in this area, duplexes are permitted in the Bay Street Limited Business District, as are residential apartments. We don't think this is antithetical to that use at all. And if you look across the street, again, there is a large Taylor community, right? This is just an extension of that. It is not changing the neighborhood, and this isn't a residential enclave. This exists in the Bay Street Limited Business District. Criterion G is that the impact on property values that the proposed use will not cause, contribute, or decline to property values of adjacent properties. Again, I go back to the yardstick in which we are measuring here is not to consider this in the abstract, but to consider what is permitted by right on this property. And by right, if Taylor wanted to, it could build residential apartments. It doesn't want to do that. It wants to do this duplex project, but it could build residential apartments. And it's our position that a less intense use of the land is not going to have the same type of impact on property values that multifamily residential apartments could have. In fact, we believe that this won't have any adverse effect on the surrounding properties, in part because, as you all saw when you did the tour, there is a grade that goes down to the water. I think it goes from 542 feet to 510 feet, such that the tops of the buildings, while you will still see them, are not going to be as if they're sitting on grade level, right? It's going to be sloping down so that views are still maximized. Additionally, going back to what I was saying before, in terms of what is also permitted in this area, restaurants are permitted, office parks are permitted, retail space is permitted. We don't think this is going to have an adverse effect on the area. Taylor prides itself on building beautiful buildings. But the use itself is not more intense than what is allowed by right. And the final criterion is that the proposed use or structure is consistent with the spirit and intent of the master plan. And the 2019 master plan for the town actually calls for increased residential density in the Bay Street Limited Business District. So this is not antithetical to the master plan. It's actually complementary to the master plan, which contemplates developments exactly like this in the Bay Street Limited Business District, which is meant to be a mixed-use district, where you have single-family homes, where you have high-density development, and where you have offices and businesses and the like. And with that, if there's any questions about the site plan elements particularly, we have our engineer here who can walk through any of them for you, if that is part of your questions. And we have folks from Taylor and myself here are also available to answer any questions the board may have about the 8 criteria. Thank you.
Not at this point. Typically now, with the presentation, thank you, the presentation been given, I would open up the public hearing for public comment. Those in favor? Those opposed? And also I have 2 or 3 letters here I want to make sure I get into the record. So who would like to go first? Please step up and state your name for the record. I guess there's a sign-up sheet there. Is that what that is? Yeah, okay.
Ken Gerber. So I am one of the abutters, 61 Bay Street, along with my wife Donna. We are the...
You have to take the microphone with you. Sorry.
We are the folks that live here, in this corner lot here.
And what number Bay Street?
What's that?
What number Bay Street?
61.
51?
61.
Oh, it was 21. I was just looking. Okay.
I assume the board has the letter that we submitted that had our concerns with the project. Yes. That was written when Taylor was proposing 5 units. So, you know, you gotta, originally they came in, as far as we knew, with 4, and then they bumped it up to 5. Then we wrote the letter. One concern that I did want to point out, based on hearing the discussions today, was the parking lot. And I understand the town had some input on the direction of the parking. However, that parking lot, the headlights face directly into our home. Small lot, small home, right here. As the visitors come and go at night, we're going to have repeated cars blasting their headlights into our house. There's at least 4 directions the parking lot could be laid out, going in, going the other way, going towards a road. And I understand there was a backup issue back, and they didn't want the cars backing into Bay Street, but clearly there's a lot of options here for redoing that parking lot so it's not, headlights aren't facing into our home. And unless you have questions on what we submitted, I think that's all we wanted to provide for comments.
Is that your only objection, is the parking lot situation?
Well, there were some others. There were some others. There's a property line that's inaccurate that happens to impact us, and we have a single width driveway that we're looking to get a little more room out of. That's not correct, but the objections are in there. So,
Thank you.
Sir, if you could write your name down on the sign-in sheet so we can get the
just
spelling
need a
correct.
pen. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else want to speak, either in favor or opposed? State your name for the record, please.
Sandra Wentworth, 66 Bay Street. Is this 4 lots, or is it combined into one?
Currently 4 lots.
4 lots?
With the pro-
So
with the
4
pro-
lots can use just one driveway, and each building is on the separate lot?
No, it's one whole lot with
No,
4
I
buildings.
misspoke, I'm sorry. It's
Well-
one whole lot.
Currently, it's 4 lots.
Clarify that.
The proposal,
It's 4 lots that they want to combine.
merge, correct.
Yeah.
Taylor Home, one of the first meetings, went to the planning board. The planning board, they wanted 4 duplexes. And the planning board told them no, they were too big and it was too much for the property. They come here to you, and now they want 5 buildings, and then they're being so nice and taking one out on the request of the neighbors, and now they're back to the original 4 that they wanted. When it comes to lighting, 3 sides of my building, I have to keep the shades down. I've got mental health on one side with all of their floodlights shining in. On the left side of the property, the recreation area, whatever, it's just filled with street lights, and the worst light is the cupola. It lights everything up. Out back, one of the houses, they went and opened up windows facing my property. There was one lady that lived there that was a little scared of the dark. She left the floodlight on, shining right in my backyard. And then you get the nursing home I didn't think I would see. So I don't have to use floodlights at all. So I understand my neighbor across the street being concerned about more street lights and more traffic, you know, and he gets the worst of it with cars coming in and out of Taylor Home, and they have a lot. The town made a big mistake when should have bought the property when they had the chance. It's the last field in the town of downtown Wolfeboro. And I understand it probably wouldn't go through. I think it's too much, especially where they're big, but one thing that bothers me is the wildlife. There's a regular wildlife coming right down through here. And when I say that, when I left the house this evening, I had a deer sleeping in my backyard. They do that and eat my garden. But I have as many as 5 deer that will cross my property and over the line in Taylor Home, and they go down there to forage and also go in the water. The houses, they originally said they wanted to keep them in line with the residential area. Every house is within 10 to 20 feet of the road. Those are further away. They're down in the field. So it's not keeping in line. They were right. You're standing and looking at their property. Everything to the right, but one house is commercial. Everything to the left, all the way to the end of Bay Street, is all residential. If you face Taylor Home Community, on the left, they're surrounded by residential. And other than the 3 businesses, everything on Bay Street is residential. So this is a fine line. Are you going to increase the commercial coming up or not, even though it's residential housing? Besides the deer being close to the water, I am concerned, and I'm going to ask the state about their dock, because all of a sudden I see rocks that were put in near their dock. That's where the turtles come up. There was a turtle that was at least 70 years old that used to come up, lay their eggs and stuff. I don't know how it's going there. But the rocks are going to help the water snakes, because water snakes live there. We have a lot of them. Muskrat that look like oversized rats, they live in the rocks. They make room for the minks that live down there. Woodchuck, opossum, petunia. One was removed from the area, but there are more petunias that are helping me. The only other way the wildlife can get on is going down to the park on the other end. That's fairly safe. They've tried coming in before. Our neighbors have had 2 deer that they've had to get rid of that tried to go between the buildings and got hit by a car. There's also a bear that goes there. He definitely has to go in from the park, and he roams the fields. I crossed the street to get my mail last summer. I turned around, looked towards Taylor Home to see if the cars are coming, and there's a bear looking at me looking for cars. We're 20 feet apart. They went up Taylor Home Drive, I went up my driveway, both of us moving rather quickly. And there's going to be more getting hit. If they're building in there, they have to leave egresses for animals that can fall in, because it truly is a lot of wildlife there. And I think 4 duplexes is too much, especially the size. I know they have to build something. If anything, I would like to see this one removed and down to 3 duplexes to leave more room for animals. These should be pulled back further away from the water. So those are my main concerns right now.
Thank you.
Oh, I just said, yeah, exactly where is your property? I'm sorry, I missed where.
Where is what?
Where are you? Right, just.
She's across from the other abutters.
I'm right here on the map.
Okay, yep. Thank you.
Anyone else in the public would like to speak? Would the applicant like to have a last word, or?
A few comments. First, as Mr. Gerber has noted, that his letter of opposition was principally based on this being 5 units and not 4. And additionally, the planning board did not say that the use of the land was too intense at 4 units. There was a question as to what the zoning ordinance permitted in terms of density. The planning board didn't make any comment about this being too intense or not intense at all. It was under the impression, we believe the mistaken impression, that the Bay Street Limited Business District permits only 1 duplex per lot. That was the question. It wasn't a question of 4 being too much or not. There was never a discussion about 4 versus 5 versus 3. Many of the questions that came up in the rebuttal comments, I think it's important to note that many of those were planning questions. Floodlights and the way headlights are going to be facing. I'm not saying that those are not concerns that shouldn't be addressed, but those are concerns that are addressed by the planning board. The question before this board is whether or not elderly housing should be granted as a special exception. That's really just the question. There was comments, well, there's residences on either side of this. Well, we're not proposing to build a restaurant. We could build a restaurant there. We're not building a restaurant there. We're proposing to build housing, which is complementary to what is already in the vicinity of that area. And so it's our perspective that it's important to remain focused on the question at large, which isn't a planning question, but a use question. and that is, can you have elderly housing in this area? And that is really the only issue before this board. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. Taylor Community did work with the Conservation Commission to ensure that there was going to be no impact or disturbance of the wetlands, and development was pulled back from the wetlands to ensure that that did not happen.
Okay, any other comment or question to the applicant or Nambata?
I had some questions for the applicant.
Speak
Is that
up.
okay? I said I had some questions for the applicant, if it's permitted for me to ask now.
Yep, go ahead. Would you come back up, please?
Thank you, and sorry, what was your name again, sir?
Brian.
Brian? Okay, nice to meet you. I had a question specifically about how our town defines elderly housing. Specifically, does Taylor Home really meet the definition of elderly housing for what you're claiming, this life care retirement community? And if so, where will there be on-site nursing facilities? Where are the recreational facilities? And where are the other related management support systems that will be on this parcel?
So those management facilities are located across the street on the Taylor Community main campus. But I can go grab the ordinance, which is on my laptop. But the definition of elderly housing under the town lists those as examples of what elderly housing could include. But if you look at the preamble to that section, which has the definition of what elderly housing is, it is those three criteria that we just talked about, which is 55 years or older, that the design is going to meet the barriers to access in New Hampshire, and that it is regulated by the state of New Hampshire. Taylor meets all of those.
May I ask a follow-up, Suze?
And I can grab my laptop to look at the ordinance.
I have the ordinances in front of me too. If you want them though for your own.
Okay.
I just had one follow-up.
What, for what?
On what he called, because I'm,
Oh, okay.
if I may. My only question is, so you're claiming that this proposed use is just elderly housing? You're not claiming that it's specifically life care retirement community?
I think Taylor writ large probably qualifies as a life care retirement community. It has those services. It does have a license with the state of New Hampshire for assisted living. It does have a license with the state of New Hampshire for a nursing home. This specific development on this specific lot falls within Taylor's program, but it is for independent living. Meaning that the state of New Hampshire is not going to be looking at on-site care related to independent living, because that's not what New Hampshire regulates in terms of its licensure program. But because this is Taylor Community and you still have its insurance program, the entirety of the program is still looked at by the New Hampshire Department of Insurance.
I understand that, but does it meet our town's definition of a life care retirement community?
Taylor Community does, yes.
Okay.
If I might add to that, the Taylor community actually received a special exception in April of 1999 for the property across the street. That property across the street consisted of 8 single-family home detached units, 9 duplexes, 1 triplex, and 2 quadruplexes. So the town has already classified this use, including detached single-family homes and duplexes, 8 of them single-family and 9 duplexes, as elderly housing in the past.
What year?
1999.
I want to speak further to that during deliberations, but.
And I also want to note, when you're looking at the definition of elderly housing, the part you're looking at, A, B, and C, congregate housing, life care, retirement community, and nursing home, it's important to go back to the definition before it, which includes the definition, but the second to last sentence is really important. It says, elderly housing may be contained in a single building or groups of buildings and may be further classified as follows. It doesn't say shall be further classified as follows. And the inclusion of the word may is critical. So you can have an elderly housing that actually doesn't meet any of A, B, and C, but would still be considered elderly housing within the town's ordinance because it meets those 3 criteria that I already talked about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I got
Yeah,
two
Jody.
questions. The way the beachfront is developed right now, is that that's still gonna stay open for everybody across the street to come down in, down the road and down, is that that's a walkway between the two, right, to the docks?
It's still
Correct.
going to stay open unless the town, I'm trying to separate the appeal from the special exception. Whether that stays open isn't a reason to deny the special exception because it doesn't fall within the criteria. Part of our appeal from the planning board was, the planning board's position was that the plan violated the town's funnel ordinance. We disagree, and that's part of what the board can hear. And if the board decides that the funnel ordinance would be violated, then yeah, that would have to be changed because we can't violate the funnel ordinance, but it's still possible to say, yes, you can still get a special exception for elderly housing, but we're not going to let you funnel anybody down from the main campus, right? Both of those things are not mutually exclusive.
All right, my next question.
Maybe not explaining that in the best way, but
I sort of get it, but
it's
part of...
They're separate inquiries. The town could say, yes, you meet the criteria for a special exception. We're going to allow you to build the duplexes, but we're going to take up the funnel ordinance as a separate inquiry. And it is a separate inquiry.
All right, and I guess my last question is Taylor Community a business or nonprofit?
I believe it's a nonprofit.
It's 100% nonprofit?
Recognized as a nonprofit? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Nonprofit in the state of New Hampshire.
I have a follow-up on that question. Would these be appertaining to the nonprofit use,
Yes.
the proposed use here?
Yep, it's still falling under the same contract. So if you have additional questions, that's the Taylor's program. They can come and answer. But essentially, someone who is still able to live without any assisted living could live there, and as they age and phase out, they may move across the street to the main campus where they have additional care. And I believe Taylor put in its application that right now is providing, not its application, a letter that came in last week, a significant amount of care to individuals who can just no longer afford it, but because they're part of the insurance program, Taylor's obligated to provide that care.
Thank you.
And I can get you the number on that.
That's okay. I mean, unless you guys want to provide it, but...
So that's $2.2 million this year, and care that it is not receiving direct compensation for.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, it looks like everyone's had their chance to speak, so I'm going to take a roll call vote to close the public hearing.
Second.
Chuck?
Yes.
Brian, yes. Jody?
Yes.
Kate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Public hearing is closed. We will now deliberate. I'd like to start out with one thing that I'd like the board members to keep in mind. Two things, actually, to keep in mind. One is the town of Wolfeboro zoning is permissive. That means it tells you what you can do. And it's not, it tells you what uses can happen and how they happen and what criteria follows. If it's not in there, you can't do it unless you come for a variance. And then maybe you can't do it either. The other thing is, this piece of land, this 4 acres, is a separate deed on a separate parcel across the street, not tied to in any way, shape, or form the parcel on the other side of the road. And you need to keep that in mind. They've tried to link it together by what they do as an organization, and that's all well and good and wonderful. But this is a separate deed, a separate parcel, with an ordinance that we have to apply to that parcel. So, I have to differ with the applicant in that even though the ordinance says may, our definition is very clear. We addressed elderly housing in this town. We have several places that have it on different scales and different reasons to provide different services. This proposal that we have before us has not submitted to us any documentation that would suggest that they have evidence of submitting that the units as described meet any of these A, B, and C. They are saying that they do A, B, C, and X, Y, Z for elderly housing, but we have nothing in front of us that substantiates that. And specifically under the congregate A, it's limited with nursing care. It's required to be A, you have to have either nursing care or some kind of housekeeping or something such as that, limited nursing care. They haven't shown anything that supports that they are going to do that or will do that or are going to do that. There's nothing in our packet that shows that that sort of service would be provided. And even the drawings don't show anything that would show that that's going to happen. And the same with B, the life care community in B, they have not shown any provisions of anything on site for nursing facility, anything related to the management and support of that. And then the same with C, which is nursing home. Again, there's been nothing submitted that shows that they would be able to provide nursing home facility there. So, to my mind, just using the documents that I have, and we know it's not going to be affordable low-income housing for 55 and older. I mean, we know that. Mm-hmm. That's just a common sense conclusion. So I can't see that they qualify for meeting the criteria of elderly housing. I'll go around the table and ask for your views. Chuck, you want to?
Well, yeah, I agree with you. Point 7 on their application describes the project as high-end waterfront duplexes, not elderly housing. So I'm kind of confused as to
That's, I'm with that. What you just said was.
Yeah, what are they calling it? What are they? Just what are the design criteria? Is it going to be elderly housing or high-end waterfront duplexes?
Well, from the drawings, you can see that they're going to be duplexes with walkout basements and decks or patios. But as I understand it, the planning department suggested maybe that something that they want to explore is elderly housing. So they changed their application to bring it forward in that manner.
In what manner? As elderly housing?
Elderly housing.
Okay.
Where's their application?
Well, I have 2 points. One, the applicant did point out that our ordinance say may further be classified as follows. So it doesn't require that A, B, and C be required to comply with the requirement for elderly housing.
No.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's maybe, but it's saying elderly housing is considered these 3 categories. They're the 3 categories that define elderly housing other than low-income elderly housing, which is a whole nother section.
Right. Well, that was my second question. Shauna, could you read again what we've what was approved for this site back in 1990-something?
I have it here.
I think you said it was 8 affordable units and then several other units?
No, so there's no mention of affordability either in the definition or in this, I believe, I can read it. The applicant is seeking a special exception to permit elderly housing. The proposal consists of construction of a loop road off Bay Street and 37 elderly housing units, all serviced by water and sewer. Secondary emergency egress is proposed, blah, 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 2 points of access for emergency vehicles. The residential units as proposed will consist of 8 single-family detached units, 9 duplexes, 1 triplex, and 2 quadruplexes. So there's nothing about affordable,
Okay,
there's
all right.
nothing about,
I misunderstood, but that was approved in when?
in 1999, before the zoning board.
How big was the parcel?
I don't know, I don't have the planning board file associated with it, and it doesn't say on the decision. Let me see if it's,
So was it the same property then or not?
this is the property across the street. I've got actually a plan here, let me see if it says what the, and it did cross zones, it was both in the residential general and in the commercial Bay Street district. I don't see an acreage on here. I apologize.
Okay. Okay, so that approval was for the property
Across the street.
It wasn't this property?
Correct.
Okay.
It's significantly bigger and significantly a larger parcel, 30 acres.
And that is part of the elderly housing definition where? The size of the property that it's allowed on.
That's not related to elderly housing.
Right.
I'm just comparing it
Yep,
to the...
yep.
Got it.
Thank you.
Will you finish? I would just note that the ordinances have been amended and changed since then.
Agreed.
Okay, so currently, the, under special exception, that was amended in 2017, and then I saw something someplace else, but that allowed for elderly housing. And that required planning board approval and for site plan and so forth. So again, I go back to the fact that what they're doing across the street has no impact, in my view, of what they're trying to do on this lot. I mean, it has impact, like they say, that people from there will come down and swim. But we're not looking at that. We're looking at, does elderly housing under our ordinance on that lot, separate deed, separate parcel, compute to being an allowed use, given we have prescriptive zoning? I don't see where our zoning says that's allowed in the Bay Street Limited Business District.
I'd back you up on that because I think we should just leave what's across the street, not even talk about what's across the street. It should just be that
That's what
one
I'm
lot,
trying to
and that's it.
convey.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
not part of this application. Brody?
Yeah, when I first reviewed the application, I found their use of I think it was calling it a life care retirement community, or what we've seen, at least in the letter that they provided for our packets too. I didn't think that because this is a separate parcel from the rest of the campus, the 30-acre campus, that it met that definition of life care retirement community. So I would agree with everyone else that the separate parcel that there is on this parcel, you could maybe argue that there's these recreational uses because of the beach and the docks, but there's no on-site nursing facilities, and there's very other limited related management support systems. There's not like an outhouse with management folks. Now, where I'm going to differ, though, is reading, for me, it's what does the ordinance say? And it says housing principally used, designed, or adapted for use by elderly citizens, 55 years of age and older, and complying with the design requirements of the Architectural Barrier-Free Design Code for the state of New Hampshire as amended and licensed by appropriate state agencies. So if they build these housing units to those standards, then elderly housing is. And then it says has an additional sentence with 2 clauses. Elderly housing may be contained in a single building or groups of buildings. Well, you know, you have some facilities are a single building, like, for example, the Wolfeboro Bay Center, and some are multiple buildings, as is being proposed here. That's a clause unto itself. And then there's a separate clause, may be further classified as follows. I think, and that's why I asked the attorney, because I was kind of going back and forth, and I'd have to agree with the applicant's attorney, that may is a very key part. It says it may be further classified as follows. And so it may be congregate, it may be life care retirement community, and it may be a nursing home, but you can still have elderly housing is everything prior to that sentence. So I lean it, you could permit a use. Now the question is how many buildings go on the lot, and that's a separate application for later, but I think, I personally feel as if it may permit elderly housing if it meets these design requirements and it's restricted to people 55 years or older. For me, a key question will be in the next application, how many dwellings are permitted? And there'll be a further discussion about that, but that's where I fall on it.
I know I'm not voting, but I agree with Brody, and I think it turns on the number of buildings or the number of buildings on the lot. But I do think, given what I know about retirement communities, that this does still fall within, I mean, I can't believe that we now define elderly as 55, but I'm pretty insulted by that. But 55 and older, I think you can have separate, all the places that I know of have very distinctly different living areas, and you do not have to have a nursing facility right there in the unit, right there where the other buildings are, the residential buildings are.
To your point, Sabette, think about the manufactured housing park that was built in the 70s up by, not Wambeck, what's it called?
The Ledges?
Not the Ledges. I'm thinking of Birchill. Yeah, Birchill Estates. No, but it is still, it might meet our definition of elderly housing. I think, though, that may, in the second clause of the last sentence, that's the key may. I think that's, if it said shall, I would 100% agree with your interpretation, Suzanne. If it said, and shall be further classified as follows, I'd say it's got to be one of these three, and it sure as heck ain't what they're claiming life care retirement community. But when it says it may be, they may classify it as one of these things, or they may just say it's 55 up. So that's just where I fall on it.
Okay, so let's look at it this way. These are the things that may be done for elderly housing. The ABC, the 55 and older low-income housing, a percentage of low-income housing, something like Harriman Hill. That's a nonprofit. Where do you find in our zoning ordinance that fits for duplex elderly housing in the limited business district? Show me where it says they have permission to do that.
I think if you read them in totality together, where they permit duplexes, now we're going to have a question about how many are permitted, but clearly duplexes are a permitted use in that district, and then by special exception, you can have elderly housing based on the permitted residential uses. It's kind of layered. I can see your perspective, Suze, and may be further classified as follows, but I think when the voters approve an ordinance like that and they see may, they understand it means it's more open-ended. If it said shall, I think the voters would have given us much more clear, and the planning board, what they would have presented to the legislative body would have been a much more clear intent. It shall be one of these types of three elderly housing. I think, obviously our town, there are a few places in our ordinances it's clear as mud, but that's why we exist we're the pressure valve, so then we're not unduly taking people's property rights. But, I think they have a fair argument for that they meet elderly housing and that it doesn't necessarily have to be one of these. It's kind of like life care retirement.
I wasn't trying to argue that it had to be one of those. That is a guideline for what is permissive, what is permitted. Those are permitted. If they were saying they were going to be A, we'd have a hard decision to say you can't do that, because it says right here you can if you do X. I'm not saying that they have to do that. I'm saying these are three things they may do to be elderly housing, as well as our ordinance says 55 and older for affordable housing. It doesn't say may, that is one of them.
No,
So there's various types of elderly housing. I don't see where the duplex of housing, elderly housing, fits in anywhere in our elderly housing ordinance. And the one thing that I think stands out to me is that architectural barrier-free design. Well, these people are gonna go from the water to the basement, to the second floor, to their living space, out the back door to park their car, and then if they want to go over to Taylor Home, up the hill over there. So I don't know as though how they're going to make it architecturally the
Elevators.
Well, they're going to have to, because the code enforcement officer is going to have to make sure they do that. It's less of our question and more of, will that code be enforced?
I guess my question is, the applicant listed the special
Use your microphone up close.
Yes.
Bring it up to you.
There's some kind of distraction.
The applicant mentioned, listed the special exception criteria during the presentation. I guess my question is, where do they not meet any of the criteria? Because I don't see that they're missing the criteria, meeting the criteria. Looks like they're following them or meeting them.
Well, they don't meet any one of the three that I've named off, A, B, and C.
True, but those are not the criteria for a special exception.
What are you saying?
I'm saying that looking at the special exception criteria, which the applicant ticked off in his presentation, I do not see where the applicant is missing or failing to meet any of the special exception criteria. So I'm just wondering.
We have to go through those one by one, right?
Well,
Right? Right. So,
Yeah, so I think the point that Kate is making is that we're talking about the definition. We also need to talk about the 8 criteria of a special exception. And I think that's very true.
Well, just to answer, Kate, 175, 107, and that's special exception uses, and they allow under F, elderly housing, so that's what they're applying under.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're saying you think they've met the special exception criteria, the criteria that's in our ordinance?
yes.
Okay. For the proposed elderly housing
You got to
use.
talk to the public can hear you, not back and forth to each other.
So I thought I was speaking to the mic. I said, so Kate, what you're saying is that, and through the chair, Madam Chairwoman, what I believe Kate is saying is that she believes that it's met the special exception criteria, the proposed elderly housing use, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I would have to agree with Kate, albeit maybe I think the proposed use of elderly housing is not injurious to neighboring abutters, but I think the size of the use as the abutters are demonstrating, but that's not what this application's about. This application's about, are they going to get elderly housing as a special exception? Has it met that criteria? The next application is going to be about how many structures are permitted.
yeah, I
So
understand.
I just want to make that clear, though, and for the,
It's clear, the applicant has made it clear.
well, I just think for the abutters, though.
Can I just clarify too, a couple of times folks have said that the definition of elderly housing includes affordability. It does not. There's no reference to affordability or low income in the definition of elderly housing.
But isn't that part of how Harriman Hill got here? Because they qualified for affordable housing? Because they got grants and they put in affordable housing?
I'm not familiar with that application, I apologize.
Well, then I will say it is how they got here. And there's a provision in here that provides for elderly affordable housing.
Is that
And it
provision
says-
under the multifamily, perhaps?
Yeah.
Multifamily housing and not the elderly housing?
I think there's a second definition that's affordable elderly housing in the ordinance, because I remember reading it earlier. And I think it's a different permitted use in a different district, if I'm remembering correctly, though.
Bertie is right, there is an affordable nonprofit housing for the elderly specific use that is defined in our ordinance.
Yep.
What number?
So it's under 175, 175, the definitions, 175, 175, and they're all in alphabetical order. Affordable nonprofit housing for the elderly. 175, 175.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it.
I'm gonna make a note here.
Well, wait a minute. Could I just look at this for a minute? Affordable nonprofit housing. Okay.
So they are not applying under that definition.
It was amended in 2003 and 2004. I guess my point is, going back to permissive zoning, we tell the townspeople have voted, these are the types of elderly housing we would like to see in our community. And they're listed in here. There isn't one for the type that they're providing, which is certainly not affordable.
No.
Audrey Klein submitted, did y'all see the document that Audrey submitted?
Don't use her name. It's not signed.
It is.
It is signed.
Is it signed? Then
Yeah.
I stand corrected, thank you.
Yeah. Well, so I'll just read something that she said related to this in support of what Suzanne is saying. She said, under,
What page are you on?
it was one page right
The
here.
front page,
Yeah,
okay.
right here.
Yeah, okay.
She says, life care retirement community. Well, she was saying elderly housing must meet one of three descriptions. And she said it, life care retirement community, a building or group of buildings providing a range of housing options for the elderly with provisions for on-site nursing facilities, recreational facilities, and related management support systems. Then she says, this is not a life care retirement community as attested to by Taylor Homes in the planning board meeting for the reason that, quote, state law requires a life care retirement community to include one or more units that are affordable per state end quote, per state definition. None of these units are proposed to meet the definition of affordable. Additionally, no life care contract has been submitted for review. So I'm just making a note here of what Audrey sent in to us about that.
I think Audrey has a valid point, but they're claiming the use is just elderly housing, and clearly Susan and I have a slightly different interpretation, and I think both are legitimate ways to look at it, but I just view it differently through the lens of may means it may be one of these three or something else that qualifies as elderly housing, and I guess that might be the key decision in front of us unless folks disagree that they've met the special exception requirements in the ordinance, so, which Kate and I, it seems, think they have, but maybe.
If I may comment on the affordable elderly housing, there's actually a specific zoning district just for that use. It's an overlay district. So I think that that particular use and that definition for that use was built just for one particular area in town, the affordable nonprofit housing for the elderly overlay district. It's literally a zoning district.
So does elderly housing have to be affordable?
No, it does not.
Okay.
No. Okay, I think we beat that to death for the moment. Let's go through the 8 criteria. Site suitability. The specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed use of structure. This includes adequate usable space, adequate access, absent of environmental constraints, steep slopes.
He's going to try to figure out what the noise is. He's trying to figure out what the noise is.
Oh,
I thought it was your hearing aids.
must be me. Okay, Adequate usable space, I would say yes, even if they subdivided it into 4 lots, they would have space
Yep.
for each individual unit. Adequate access, they do right off the highway or the road. Absent environmental constraints, they're talking about floodplains, slopes. I do say that there is a steep slope. It does have a steep slope, and they happen to provide for water runoff and drainage. 2, immediate neighborhood impact, that the proposal is not detrimental or injurious to, or obnoxious or offensive to the abutting properties in particular, and to the neighborhood in general. Typical impacts which extend beyond the property's proposed site include excessive noise, excessive trip generation, noise or vibration, dust, glare, heat, smoke, fumes, gas odors, inappropriate hours of operation. Excessive trips, no, they'll be increased, but they are elderly people. They won't be going out to work every day. Noise and vibration, no, probably not, because once it's built, they aren't going to do anything except sit around, I guess. Dust, glare, and heat.
All right.
I can speak for myself. I'm old, too. Smoke, fumes, no. Inappropriate hours of operation. I think that the planning board will have to take care of that.
Excessive trip generation, I think that's, if they're still gonna be letting people walk across the street and now you have added vehicles going in there, that could be considered excessive trip generation.
And that's a good point as well. Yeah, I didn't think of that. It will be increased foot traffic.
Except for if they can't walk, they're gonna load them on the shuttles and they're gonna drive them across, and they're gonna drive right down that road and stop right at that trail to the beach.
For those that can't walk, they'll take
Yes.
the shuttle.
Guaranteed.
So there's going to be increase in pedestrian traffic and shuttle traffic.
Absolutely.
Okay. So would you say 2 does not apply? They do not meet number 2?
I believe they do not meet number 2.
Chuck? Do you think Jody has a point?
I think he has a point to a degree, but I don't have a problem with number 2.
I think the key word's excessive. I don't think it'd be any more excessive than any other similar use or elderly housing in that neighborhood.
And I think it would be short-term, too, temporary.
Why would that be short-term?
Not going down there in January.
If there's construction going on?
Oh, we're not talking about the construction.
Oh, okay.
But criteria 3, by the way, covers nuisance or hazardous to pedestrian or vehicular traffic, so we can talk about it there too.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 3, that there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazards to pedestrians or vehicle traffic, including the location and design of access ways and/or off-street parking.
So that makes me want to talk about, now you have nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian. You're gonna have pedestrians going across the crosswalk. Now you're gonna have cars trying to pull out of this place. Not all the time, but now you're gonna have, I can't picture where they've got the crosswalk there. But, I mean, you're gonna have cars coming out. You're gonna have people coming across the crosswalk and a car trying to come out. And, you know,
Well, it's at the top of a knoll.
what's,
It's the top of a knoll,
yeah.
so the visibility. But I would say you know that street because you have,
Yeah, it's the most horrible spot on Bay Street is right where they wanna build this. It's
okay.
got a wicked blind spot coming one way. I don't know why someone hasn't lost their life yet on that road, but the people just whiz down that road, and there's a wicked blind spot coming from Napa up to that top where the pedestrians are and the cars pulling out. I'm just saying,
So
maybe,
you don't-
maybe it's not a serious hazard, but I don't know. I think it's going to be, it's a potential for just having a little bit of a
Are you
traffic
saying, are you
situation there.
saying it's going to be undue nuisance or a serious hazard to pedestrians? That's what number 3 says at the top.
I would say yes to that, just because
Okay.
I know the road well and just, I'm
Brody,
just trying
what's
to.
your thought on number 3?
People are already crossing there.
What?
I said, there's already a crosswalk there. They're just taking the crosswalk and
Well, they
moving
put
it
that
over.
in, yeah.
Well, they
There's a
have
crosswalk to nothing.
well, true, but there are people who still frequent down there who are from Taylor community or other members of the community who park there and just, walk down there anyways. I guess where it comes in for me is the combination of potentially increased foot traffic and this proposed road with 8 units on it, those people driving up and down that, trying to navigate, pulling out on that knoll with potential pedestrian traffic. But as Suzanne pointed out earlier on, these are elderly individuals who will possibly be driving significantly less. So I wonder how much the vehicular traffic will increase. So I'm leaning towards it's no different than the current hazard that exists there.
Okay, Chuck?
I agree with that. We're talking about a potential increase in vehicle or pedestrian traffic, and if there were an increase, I think it would be very small.
Well, there's an increase from a vacant lot.
Plus you have,
That's what we're talking about. It's an undeveloped lot.
you have
We already
visitors.
said that the
You're gonna-
crosswalk is being used. I'm just saying that the crosswalk would be used maybe a little bit more frequently.
You gotta think about all those people living in these new duplexes. They don't live by themselves and never have any visitors either. So, I mean, a lot of these people could be having visitors quite frequently. So I'm
I
just
think
trying
Jody
to,
makes a good point.
just sort of throwing out that point that, I don't know.
I think it's a good point, Jody.
Okay,
Can I just point out that this is one of the criteria for special use, but a permitted use that wouldn't come before you guys at all would include a restaurant, a bank, a personal service shop, a professional office, sorry, let me do that again. Would include, yes, I was right, yeah. Business services, professional offices, personal services, banks, restaurants, retail, under 3,000 square feet. So you do have to think about what, in comparison, this use that they're proposing under the special use in comparison to some of those permitted uses that wouldn't even come before you guys.
nobody's asking for the other things. No, we're only
Well-
dealing with what
Yeah,
they're
we can't,
asking for.
you can't, we have to just
But
think
was
about
the boat
this.
museum approved? I mean, that would have been significantly,
But when you're talking about a significant increase, you have to take into account what's permitted there by right, right? So a restaurant is permitted there by right. So think about the traffic that a restaurant would generate. That is not even a question as to whether or not significant traffic is an issue for a restaurant. So we really have to look at, a significant increase in relation to kind of the whole piece of the ordinance allowed in that zone.
I would say the foot traffic would be less than, say, even the Wolf Trap. That's a restaurant that's,
Yeah, but they're not crossing the street to go
There's
over to visit
no
the
crosswalk down
friends
there.
over in the
That's
in the
true.
other
That's a fair
complex.
point. I'm just saying the foot, what, to Shauna's point, it's a very valid
It's
point
like a
there.
neighborhood. The restaurant isn't a neighborhood. They go in, they eat, and they get out and go home.
But that produces more vehicular traffic than a residential use typically, especially for elderly individuals. Because as you mentioned, elderly individuals aren't leaving their home, but people go to a restaurant every day it's open in significant numbers.
Okay.
So Shauna makes a good point, and that is that there are other uses that this property could be made to without even our approval. And the bottom line, we do need to work through the 8 criteria, but the bottom line is I think it's a pretty good use of the property.
Okay. Number 4, availability of public services and facilities. The foregoing services and facilities are available, and I think we know that the answer to number 4 is yes, without going round and round about that.
Yep.
Number 5, appropriateness of site plan. Consideration shall be given to the following: parking scheme, traffic circulation, open space, fencing, screening, landscaping, signage, commercial vehicles, lighting, impact.
I think we I don't see a problem with any of those except for the parking scheme. I do hear both neighbors talking about potential problems with the parking spots where they are. But there is a lot of property there, and I'd like to see other parking spaces considered for visitors.
I think snow storage was an issue that was legitimately raised, and they still have that snow storage at the end of those parking spots, it looks like. I also think that lighting was brought up, and I think lighting could be a significant issue. I mean, there are other existing uses that abutted are extremely bright, and that would be, that type of lighting, depending on whether or not it's actually truly dark sky compliant, and even if it is, it can still be bright, could be a nuisance to an abutter. So I don't know if they meet that part of the special exception based on how their other uses are, how they use them.
I would say that if you approve this, you put the condition on there that the planning board pay special attention to the lighting, downward lighting.
I would agree, Susan.
And snow storage.
And snow storage, I
What
think.
about parking?
And parking.
I think lighting,
Parking
parking,
and
and snow
lighting.
storage.
Parking, yeah. Number 6, immediate neighborhood integrity, that the use and established use patterns be weighed with recent change trends in the neighborhood. And I would like to, and I am remiss that I didn't mention that we did get a letter from the abutters from, what was it? I guess the gentleman spoke, 61 Bay Street, and these people made some good points that I think that maybe we could have done better by, but the one that caught my eye was each of the 5, well, because now it's 4 duplexes, are roughly the size of our entire property. The sheer scale of the project will overwhelm the lot and is not consistent with the current residential properties on Bay Street. That just happened to catch my eye. But the record needs to show that 61 Bay submitted a letter in opposition, as well as 71 Bay also submitted, and they itemized the criteria of the special exception why they felt it didn't meet. And then we had, I thought we had 3. We only had 2?
2.
Then we had, of course, from Taylor Community themselves.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I was just saying Audrey's letter, but she's not in a butter.
No.
I think the scale of what...
No, that can be submitted. You don't have to be in the butter to submit your opinion.
So Audrey.
Yeah, I didn't realize she sent it in the form of a letter. So her reasoning why, and then we had from Taylor Homes, their, what is it, the property manager, VP property manager, and from Du Bois King, Laconia operating manager, showing the height verification. Okay, so I cut myself off. Where was I? Number 6?
Number
No,
6,
I
immediate
wanted to add
neighborhood
something to that.
integrity.
What?
I'm sorry, I wanted to talk about this number 61
Yeah.
packet here. I'm just curious why this is pretty hardcore against it. And then all of a sudden he got up to the mic. It's almost sounding like he wanted to withdraw this almost, unless I was wrong, and just talked about the parking. And I don't understand how someone who has all these good points and everything, and they drop off one of the duplexes and it changes the whole thing. You can do that, I guess. It's America, but I just wanted to point that out, that the whole packet had a lot of good points and
Very well done.
now it's like,
I mean, I
all he
can't,
talked about was the
I
parking,
can't read the
so
whole thing.
I don't know.
Where was I? 6?
Number 6.
6. Immediate neighborhood integrity. And that one, I think we really think long and hard about, because that will, to my view, I mean, I go up and down the street too. I come from North Wolfeboro and around downtown through there. And that will have an impact on, as you said, the 61 spells it out, the impact to the neighborhood. I believe that it will have an impact to the neighborhood. The sheer volume of the development will in fact impact the neighborhood.
But the development as 4 units as they've proposed, I think would be injurious to the neighborhood integrity and potentially the abutters. But I think the proposed use of elderly housing wouldn't be. So I think elderly housing won't negatively impact. I think it's the next application where we determine whether or not it's one
That is
dwelling.
the question, though. It's that this development, whatever title you want to give it, as you see on that map, do you feel it will have an impact on the integrity of the neighborhood?
The development, yes, but the proposed
The
use, no.
The use.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, the use elderly housing, no. But that specific development as elderly housing, I mean, 8 units of elderly housing across 4 structures is significantly different than the planning board's interpretation of the ordinance that they're coming to us for the next application. So elderly housing, no, but that, 4 duplexes on that lot, yeah.
That's why I'm sorry, but I'm confused on this whole thing. I guess I'm getting off track. I thought it was only zoned for one building.
That's the second application that
Yeah.
we'll be going through.
But don't we have to take all these points in
It's
for the?
one lot. The way it sits right now is one lot
Yeah.
for one building currently, or a duplex. But that's the second application.
Can I just clarify real quick, though, because I think this is really important. I think the way that the planning board was interpreting the ordinance was that there was a set of residential units that were owned, I suppose they could be rented, but residential, single-family, duplex definitions, and then there was elderly housing that was separate, that was really, it did not have a density definition assigned to it. And we talked about this at the planning board meeting, and I asked them specifically, so if the applicant comes back under elderly housing, there's no density that applies. They are constrained by parking and setbacks and impervious area, and they can have as many units as they want under the elderly housing definition, and the planning board felt that that was the case. It was only in the case of single family and duplex where they had and multifamily, which was what the original application to the planning board was, that the planning board felt that the density that they were applying was wrong, and that in the case of duplexes, it was 1 duplex per lot.
So Sean, are you saying if we say that they meet this criteria,
Elderly housing.
and for elderly housing, then they meet the criteria for density that they are going for? That changes everything.
Then the planning board determines density. It's not defined, it's determined by the setbacks and the impervious area and the parking spaces and how many units they can fit there appropriately. So it's fairly wide open for the planning board to decide density under
They send
elderly
it
housing.
back to the ZBA.
So the reason they sent it back was because they did not apply under elderly housing. They applied under duplex with some multifamily stretching of the definition. And the planning board said, no, if you want to do a duplex, you get 1 per lot. Otherwise, go get the special exception for elderly housing before the ZBA.
I watched that meeting, and that's my interpretation too. I'm viewing the density and the use significantly. For me, elderly housing, and I somewhat agree with the planning board's interpretation, but we'll have that hearing later, but you get 1 unit, single family, duplex, or multifamily, and that's a separate question unto can it be elderly housing or not? And I think I think it's separate. I think we're determining is elderly housing, does it qualify as a special exception? they could just pull the special exception and rent it to elderly people anyways if they wanted to and not get the special exception. I don't know how that would work, but I think the real question that we're going to quabble with is going to be the next one on when we actually address the disagreement over density, but that's just my opinion.
So,
Okay.
I don't know that we will hear the next one. If we approve them, exactly, under elderly housing, the density question goes away. They very well may pull that appeal of the density, because that appeal of the density was of a duplex use application.
So elderly housing equates that they can have the density that they're requesting.
Oh, interesting.
Correct.
But that makes sense. Okay.
But what about all these other criteria in the special exception?
Exactly.
Doesn't the points that Jody's brought up and other points,
How can we
those
make
not
this decision if
things we
it
get
seems
right
like
to?
every time we talk about something on this, on the eight criteria, I keep hearing everybody, well, no, that's gonna be, we're gonna be, you know what I'm trying to say? It's like, oh, no, you can't really talk about that, but isn't that part of the whole thing of, I gotta look at that, and make a decision. I have to look at these, I have to get all this information and look at that. This is how I'm gonna make my decision on this. But I keep hearing, I just hear that like we're only deciding on elderly housing. Well, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm sorry, but maybe our town planner has something to say. I just, to maybe.
Well, when you look at that, to say when you look at that, it's duplex elderly housing. Let's call it what it is. It's not for independent houses for elderly, it's duplex elderly housing. And so you're saying, if we say they meet these 8 criteria, we don't do the second application?
Yeah.
It would be a
So
moot,
that's
it would be a
just-
moot point,
It'd be
correct.
moot?
Yep, because that second application relates to them applying under the duplex use. This application is for them applying under the elderly housing use. To your point, Jody, so this is how the ordinance is written, right? So Wolfeboro wanted elderly housing to be assessed with those 8 criteria. If Wolfeboro does not feel that that's appropriate for elderly housing, the use to be assessed under those 8 criteria, it should be looked at as a zoning change.
Yeah, so you explained it that when they went to the planning board, they applied under a different.
Correct, under
Correct.
duplexes.
So now they've thrown it, now it comes to us to make the decision whether elderly housing is a accepted or approved use of this lot.
Correct.
So now, okay, so I'm just,
Well, not is it an approved use of the lot, but do they qualify?
After the special
Is this-
Do they meet the special
do they-
exception, right?
Do they
Yeah.
meet the criteria to call this elderly housing, not whether this is an approved use of the lot?
Well, so the way that the use categories work is you've got as Suzanne said, this is prescriptive, right? So you've got your uses permitted by right, that the applicant just goes to the site plan before the planning board. Then you've got your uses permitted by special exception. So they're permitted as long as they meet those 8 criteria. They don't do undue burden, they don't excessive parking, whatever the criteria are. So we have to decide, is this use in the zone,
Well, I think there's been a mixture of opinion on the 1 through 8, for which we're not quite finished. But I'll remind the board, if one of them doesn't meet the criteria in your mind,
Then they don't, yeah.
then you must vote no, not to approve. Okay,
Number 6.
number 7, impact on property values. We have nothing from the applicant or from an abutter or anybody that's...
One of the letters very
We do have-
specifically stated, the letter that
Was
you,
that- was that-
that there was, and a letter from the Realtor, that there was a
Oh, I didn't see
significant
that.
impact.
yeah, right here.
Okay.
Yes, they said there was an impact of like $60,000 to $70,000 devaluation of their home because of the lights, the road that comes right next to it.
Thank you, I missed
So
that.
there was significant devaluation.
But that was specific
you-
to the
can
boat.
you-
That was in a butter.
But
Can
that was
you
specific to the
find
boat
what one that
museum,
was?
correct?
Yeah,
I
that was
bet
one of
that's
the
at
abutter letters.
61.
It's right here. It's a letter written with regard to a previous application, number one.
Well,
Correct.
Number two, it was with regard to the loss of water view.
Which could still be the potential, though. I'm just flagging, this was written
number
by
61.
a
He
real,
did
a
a
real
thorough
estate agent
job.
in 2016 for a significantly different proposed use.
Yes.
So it was a decade ago, and it's, now, I think the point still is well made that losing sight of that natural beauty, that vista and Back Bay is potentially injurious to their property value, but the abutter also came up and said their biggest issue that they really wanted to stress was more related to snow and lights. They didn't stress this in their spoken testimony, but it's still in all their written testimony.
well, the applicant didn't submit otherwise.
And that I'd agree with too, Suze. They didn't argue back, so.
So nice job on 61. Okay, so we have to accept that as testimony. Number 8, the proposed use of structure is consistent with the spirit of the ordinance and the intent of the master plan.
Yeah.
I can't put my finger on the spirit of the ordinance about
What was it?
high-end duplex elderly housing. But certainly, when they were developing, and I was on 2 master plans in this town, and they were looking for affordable housing, and they came up with several variations until they finally got to one. It's been voted on several times, what affordable housing is. And this is not in compliance, or not compliant, but not following the will of the master plan as far as affordable housing, affordable elderly housing. So, for me, that 7 and 8 is a no, but
But they're not asking for affordable housing.
They're asking for
no, but it
high-end.
says in the intent and spirit of the master plan.
Right.
The master plan supports affordable housing.
Among other things, yes.
They don't support high-end condominiums and high-end duplexes.
What did the master plan specifically say about this street? I think I remember that they specifically addressed this area and the vision for it. Does anybody remember that?
No,
I
I
think
don't.
the applicant quoted it, our 2019 master plan
No,
about, yeah, the applicant, the applicant's attorney quoted our master plan during their presentation. From my memory, that must have been, an hour ago now, but from my memory, he mentioned it was for a mix of housing development and some of it to be affordable. So I think to Suzanne's point,
For it to be affordable?
I think some of it, I think that's a goal of our entire master plan is for there to be a mix of new housing at market or luxury and affordable, but I think in that area, it's a place where our town identifies kind of what you call like missing middle housing, smaller units, duplexes, and maybe smaller single-family homes, but I think affordability, to my understanding of the master plan, is like Suzanne said, we're trying to really stress the need for affordability in that housing mix in town, so.
But it's also waterfront property.
Yeah,
So
it's-
waterfront property and affordability don't generally go together.
I would agree with that, Jack.
Can I throw another curveball out here? So if this gets voted through and approved, what's going to stop them? They can go and try to add the 5th one back. They're going to go to planning board, and they're going to start. They can start from 0. We can approve this and say, oh, it's elderly. Yes, it's approved for elderly housing. Well, they can they can throw that right in the trash. That's the way I feel, and they can start from scratch.
But you have to have a legitimate reason to deny it, not based on what you think is going to happen.
Well, and the
Well,
ZBA.
no, I'm just talking about, I'm just trying to make the point that the decision we make I'm not talking about what they may or may not do, but I'm just saying, we can't put it in our thing saying, no, only 4, we're only approving this because they're gonna do 4 duplexes and that's it. I want it in writing. I want the zoning board,
It would be, the approval will be on the application of 4. If they want to, in a future date, expand, or they realize they could fit a 5th one, they'll have to do the process all over again.
but can
Correct.
we say this gets
No,
approved and you put stipulation
If we
only?
approve this, Jody, we would say approved on the plan of June, whatever today is, plan, that date,
No,
that's what you would approve.
that's not what I'm
for.
hearing though. I'm hearing we're just gonna decide whether elderly housing, it's considered elderly housing on that lot of land.
If we
That's
approve
what
it,
would-
that's what it's gonna be.
I know, but what I'm saying is I keep hearing that we're only, am I wrong?
So the ZBA has before in the past and can tonight limit it to the 4 units shown on the new plan that was submitted. And
Yeah.
if that changes, require the applicant to come back. To the ZBA, yep.
Okay.
Yep, you guys have done that
I guess
before.
I'm not getting that point that
Yep.
if it gets approved, what, you know.
Yep.
I think what Sean is saying is that it's, as elderly housing, there is no restriction, but if
Generally.
we approve this, for this particular case, we're going to approve based on a plan that shows 4 duplexes.
It's gonna
period.
be on, that's gonna
Yep.
be recorded, that's all I'm trying to get at.
Yep,
Okay,
yep.
I'm sorry.
It would be approved June 15th, plan,
4 duplexes.
case number, and it will be recorded, and we would say per the application of, and it will be recorded at the registry of deeds. It doesn't mean that in 5 years, they can come back and want to put another one.
No, they can do whatever they want.
Yeah,
Yeah, Joe, I think,
not whatever they want, they can come
Well,
back.
They can try to do.
I think
whatever.
I created some confusion assuming that, well, we're approving the use, and that use, then there must have been some additional density requirement. It's, you approve elderly housing, and my misunderstanding was that, then, that whether or not it's just 1 duplex or, other density requirements, we're approving that plan, that's it, and it's not like the by right, single family or duplex or multifamily that's permitted in that zoning district, so we're approving that.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, we've gone through these. I'm going to make a motion to deny the application based on the criteria 7 and 8 not being met. Property values and doesn't meet the spirit of what the master plan aspires to. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Okay, then roll call vote. Brody?
Aye.
Kate?
No.
I'm voting, what am I saying, no? I mean, I'm against it?
Okay.
Unapprove?
The
Deny?
application. Ryan denies the application.
Is that what she just did?
Kate?
She said no, which means
Yeah, she's going against what I'm sorry. I
We're
got
voting on
confused.
whether,
Favor of it, correct? Am I
No,
correct?
The motion was to
Deny the application.
Okay. And I oppose that vote.
So you're in favor of the application?
Yes.
Okay. So it's
why I
a
was
no, a
confused.
no, a no.
Wait a minute.
no, you see, you're getting confused.
You just changed from your yeses to your nos.
Let Jody clarify his vote, please.
I am to, what was your motion again?
My
Just-
motion was to deny the application.
I am a yes for denying the application.
Okay.
Kate is a no, correct? Okay. Brody?
I already said yes. I made up my mind before we voted.
Sorry.
Approval of the application. And Chuck?
I'm a no, which means it's denied 3-2.
Okay, so the application fails by 3-1.
2.
3-2.
3-2.
3-2.
So the application is denied.
Application's denied. Okay, so that now, do we go to the other one? We do the other one?
What's the second one that you have?
They want to appeal the
Yes.
planning board's,
Okay,
Decision.
just give us a minute to put our paperwork together. I
Yeah.
gotta find that.
That's the case. Is that the crooked pond change?
no, they have a difference in interpretation of the by right density.
Let's see, wait a minute. All right. Do I need these letters again, or just say, do these letters have to go again?
I'm not sure. The letters were submitted for which application?
They were submitted for the special exception.
Okay, so those are for the special exception, so I don't need those. Okay. I need that. I need that. I don't need that. You have to hold on a minute. I need this one. I think this is what, I think, is this the one that we use for this?
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. May 5th, 2026?
This one. That's the one we use,
Yeah, I got that.
okay.
I don't have that.
Yeah, May 5th,
yeah.
2026, yep.
I don't have that. Is it this one?
Yeah, that's exact, it says May 5th, 2026 right on it, Jody. Suze, Kate stepped out to grab something from her car, I think.
What, sorry?
Kate stepped out to grab something from her car real quick.
Oh, okay,
Just
okay.
when-
Just as well. We gotta put this stuff together. Let's see. I don't need that. This is next. So you could record us as a little bit of a break while one of the members, record us as a break while one of the members went out to the car to get their paperwork. $175. Call the meeting back to order.
Anything that looks like this.
If I find it.
Sorry for the delay and the confusion. Our voting member has to go, so I will appoint Sabette in the place of Kate for this one application, which is, okay, so I'm opening the public hearing. I appoint Sabette as a voting member in place of Kate for the Taylor Home Community Bay Street Tax Map 203, 62, 63, 64, 65. Bay Street Limited Business District, Case 2026AA001, Administrative Appeal under 175-104, and the other one is 175-52, Appeal of Planning Board's 4/7/26 decision to deny Taylor Community lot merger and site plan application proposing to establish 4 residential duplexes on a single lot. And you're welcome to proceed.
Thank you. Having dispensed with Taylor's special exception application, the issue now before the board is an appeal from the planning board's administrative decision, where Taylor had applied for duplexes, which are permitted by right in the Bay Street Limited Business District. It would still be used for people 55 or older, but Taylor had applied for duplexes, and the planning board denied their site plan application, in part on the grounds that it was under the impression that Taylor did not meet the density requirements of the ordinance, and we believe that is an error. Before I delve deeper into why we believe the planning board erred, I do want to clarify that for this part of the presentation, we are not looking at the special exception criteria. We are not looking at traffic. We are not looking at the neighborhood. We are not looking at property values. We are not looking at lighting. We are not looking at any of those attendant issues, except for maybe the first one, but we are only looking at the ordinance. The planning board, led by Mr. Murray, came to the conclusion that under the town's ordinance, only 1 duplex is permitted per lot in the entirety of the town's ordinance. And he offered 2 justifications for that reason, or for that outcome, and neither of which find support in the ordinance. The first is he said that other parts of the ordinance limit density to 1 duplex per lot. And it is true that there are other parts of Wolfeboro zoning ordinance that expressly say that there is only 1 duplex per lot. Those include the village residential district, the residential district, the general residential district, the rural residential district, the central business district, and the Pine Hill Road Development District, and I believe the commercial district as well. Those provisions expressly say, those districts expressly say that there is only 1 duplex permitted per lot. The Bay Street Limited Business District does not contain any such limitation. I want to be clear about that. There are certain districts in Wolfeboro that limit density to 1 duplex per lot. The Bay Street Limited Business District does not so limit density. There is a particular provision that courts apply and that land use boards apply, such as yourself, when reading an ordinance, and of course, because we're dealing with dealing with the law, it happens to be in Latin. But it's called expressio unis. And essentially what it means is that the expression of one thing in an ordinance is the exclusion of the other. And there's a court case from the New Hampshire Supreme Court called the Town of Conway versus Kudrick, 175 NH 714, 2023. It's also cited in our letter, where our Supreme Court said that the absence of language in one statutory provision that is present in another is a strong indication that the legislature, i.e. the voters of the town of Wolfeboro, did not intend the same result, and the court will not judicially supply this omission in the absence of a legislative intent to do so. I'm going to read that again. The absence of language in one statutory provision that is present in another is a strong indication that the legislature did not intend the same result, and the court will not judicially supply this omission in the absence of legislative intent to do so. What that means is that the voters of Wolfeboro have enacted parts of an ordinance, and in parts of that ordinance they have said, in these districts we will only allow one duplex per lot. And it is presumed that the voters of Wolfeboro knew what they were doing when they enacted that ordinance, and so too the voters of Wolfeboro knew what they were doing when they enacted the Bay Street Limited Business District and did not include the same limitation. If you look at the Bay Street Limited Business District, there is nothing in there that limits density. The only limitations for the development of the property are, in that ordinance, the percentage of lot being used, and that is capped at 60%. There's a front yard setback, side yard setback, a rear yard setback, and a shore yard setback. And that is it. There has to be a minimum lot of 1 acre, minimum lot frontage of 150, minimum shore frontage of 150. We meet all of that. But there is nothing in this district that limits duplexes to 1 duplex per lot. And it is our position, therefore, that the planning board erred when it essentially grafted other provisions of the zoning ordinance into the Bay Street Limited Business District. And if the board is so inclined to graft language from other provisions in the zoning ordinance, which I don't think is appropriate, but if it were so inclined, the most reasonable gap filler here is section 175-143, which we talked about earlier, which applies to multifamily development. And as we discussed earlier, that section, if the property is serviced by sewer, which this is, allows 2 multifamily buildings per acre, each of those buildings having 5 dwelling units. Residential apartments are permitted by right in the Bay Street Limited Business District, and this also fits within the master plan. It strains credulity for the town to say that you could have on this property 2 buildings per acre, but only 1 duplex. It just doesn't hang together. And as I said before, zoning board shouldn't graft provisions onto the Bay Street Limited Business District. But if it were to do so, the most reasonable gap filler is the multifamily dwelling. Because there is not a substantial difference between multifamily and duplexes, other than the fact that multifamily is 3 dwelling units. The second reason that the planning board gave for saying that we did not meet some density requirement in the Bay Street Limited Business District was that the ordinance, in listing the permitted uses, and this is a permissive ordinance, used duplex dwelling instead of using duplex dwellings. In other words, the planning board said that if the town had intended multiple dwelling units per lot, duplex dwelling would have been plural, instead as in the singular form of dwelling. That reading of the ordinance is just per se invalid. And it's per se invalid because your ordinance has a section in it called word usage, which specifically describes how the ordinance is to be interpreted. And what that section says is that words used in the present tense include the future, the singular number includes the plural, and the plural the singular. Meaning, when you're interpreting this ordinance, you're not to take any information from the fact that the drafters of the ordinance use the plural version of dwelling, the singular version of dwelling, or the plural version of dwellings. It is meaningless. Dwelling includes dwellings, dwellings includes dwelling. That is how the voters of Wolfeboro have decreed how the ordinance should be interpreted. So for those two reasons, we think that the planning board erred. In terms of density, this is duplex. I mean, this is permitted. Duplexes are permitted in the Bay Street Limited Business District as a matter of right, and there is nothing in the ordinance limiting a duplex to one duplex per lot. And as the board previously determined in the prior conversation about about a special exception, the first criteria of that application was that the specific site is an appropriate location for the proposed use and structure. I think the board agreed with that. This is a 4.02 acre lot once they're all going to be merged together. It should be the case that you can put 4 duplexes on a 4 acre lot. We're also appealing the planning board's decision as to the funnel ordinance, but before I go there, I want to pause to answer any questions that the board may have about the first part of this appeal.
I did, but it escaped me.
If it comes back to you, just interrupt me or throw something at me.
So I got a question. So
Sure.
you're basing everything you just talked on about a technicality of the wording, pretty much. Is that what you're saying? Like, I'm just trying to understand more about what you.
I don't want to say technicality of the wording as if as if technicality is meaningless, right? This is a law that has been passed by the people of Wolfeboro, and so words matter, and what's included or not included in the ordinance matter. So to that extent, I wouldn't.
No,
yes,
I'm not
I'll agree with you that it's a technicality.
I guess
I just don't
it
want to
is
see
a
that as
technicality.
pejorative.
Yeah, it's a technicality. It's just a wording of a word. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah,
Ask you that.
it's a wording of the word, but
Yep.
those words matter.
Yep.
And what section was that, please? The word usage?
Section 175, 174.
Thank you.
Do you want us to ask questions?
Said that too fast, what?
Sorry, section 175-174.
Suze, do you want us to hold our questions until later after they provide their presentation and then abutters get up and speak, or can we ask questions now?
Oh, I forgot about that. Mandate, sorry.
I'm asking, do you care? Because I have a couple of questions, but I'm more than happy to hold off.
Oh, I like to have the questions after, but.
It's
such a small, intricate group here, I think that we don't have a lot of public that wants to take some time, so I don't have a problem this time. If you got questions along the way to ask.
I'd prefer to wait.
I'm happy to defer to whatever you think.
It's just that it interrupts his flow of thought.
I'd prefer to wait too, Suze. Thank you.
Okay, I will proceed to the funnel issue, and we can circle back as necessary if there's questions. So the funnel ordinance, which is 175-52, provides that lots which are adjacent to the shoreline of any lake or pond are prohibited from granting, leasing, or otherwise conveying rights for water access to any other lot except as is permitted by Article XXIV, which is an open space residential development. The planning board said that Taylor Community did not satisfy the funnel ordinance, and again, we disagree. The purpose of that ordinance is to essentially prohibit those who have waterfront access from granting easements to other people, right? So if I live on the waterfront, I can't say, hey, Joe Smith, if you give me $20,000, I'll give you an irrevocable right so long as I live here to come use my waterfront. You can put a dock in, you can do whatever you want. That's what the ordinance is intended to do. It is long established, however, in New Hampshire law that a landowner cannot have an easement over his own property. Taylor owns both of these properties. How Taylor uses that property is up to Taylor. Taylor can't grant an easement to somebody else in town, but Taylor owns both of these, and it is allowed to use its property how it sees fit in that regard. Additionally, the planning board said that the site plan depicts kayaking and a beach on it, which would take away, which there wasn't sufficient area for that. There really is no support for the planning board's finding in a beach area or kayaking launch not having sufficient area. The development of this property is I think 27% usage, and the ordinance permits 60% usage. So, Board Member Murray seemed to be adding some usage criteria for shoreline districts that don't seem to actually be reflected in the ordinance. Okay. And with that, I'll be back after. I'm going to drop that first, but then I'll be back after. Other comments? Or questions from the board?
What, I'm sorry.
We're either about our comments or questions.
Oh,
And where are we?
he's done, all right.
Do you want to use the,
Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak for or against this application? Okay. Members, do you have questions that you didn't ask while the presentation was being given that you would like to ask now?
I did. I had a question about the, what is it, 174, 143 is the permitted uses and the, what's it called? Specific zoning district, the Bay Street Limited Business District. So I'm wondering, it seems to me the intent of the ordinance is the number of, it's more tied to the number of structures permitted versus units. And in my interpretation, I want to get the applicant's opinion on it. The district only permits either a single family dwelling or a duplex or a multifamily, and then there's these other ordinances that will override, some of the existing ordinances in the districts. And I wanted to get a better understanding. To me, it seems like it would be the more reasonable result of the intent of the ordinance to be structure-based, especially if, we're, in potentially in the applicant's interpretation, it seems as if you're interpreting it that, okay, you can allow one single family home and then multiple duplexes. Would your interpretation be different? Would it be permitting multiple single family homes on this lot if that was proposed?
Yes. You can have multiple single-family homes on this lot so long as you're meeting the other requirements set forth within that district.
Can I ask a follow-up? Oh.
Yep.
And I can understand your argument about, whether or not it's the wording is plural, albeit you even admit though in your, in your application that's extremely ambiguous. I added the word extremely, but you used the term ambiguous, very difficult to interpret. And it would seem to me though that potentially the legislative intent of the Wolfeboro voters was to approve an ordinance with the intent of it being in the singular, that it be a single family home, a duplex, or a multifamily, dwelling, with those other additional ordinances that come into play.
I only have a draft of my application open on my computer, but I believe I used the word unambiguous.
Okay, so I misread that. I misspoke. My apologies.
That's okay.
Thank you.
I don't find to answer your question, I don't find section 175-174 to be ambiguous. I find it to be categorical. Most statutes, most ordinances include provisions exactly like this. to ensure that there isn't some Scrivener's error, right, that may limit property rights. And that's what we're talking about here is property rights granted by the Constitution of the United States and of New Hampshire. And so the planning board and the zoning board cannot make a determination on density based on whether a permitted use is in the plural form or the singular form. And your ordinance expressly says that.
Okay. I have another question unless someone else has one.
I have one if you want to think.
Yeah, no,
about
go
it.
right ahead. I just want
So
to get my stuff together.
A citizen, Audrey Klein, sent in some pretty specific comments about several things and sent in something about one piece of information we've received from her was about a 2005 Supreme Court decision about Wolfeboro versus Taylor Homes. Are you familiar with that?
I haven't read it, no.
She said that
I was in high school in
it
2005.
specifically decided that you could not hook together independent living with no on-site elderly services with another campus owned by the same entity, which actually probably, I should have caught that earlier, it probably relates more to what we earlier discussed, but I'm thinking about this beach issue. And if the Supreme Court said you can't have one thing, one parcel called Taylor used by everybody else, that it all has to be linked together. I'm wondering if that interpretation would mean that you're not allowed to have a beachfront area utilized by the entire community. What would you think that means?
I haven't familiarized myself with that case, but it's probably based on a form of the ordinance that may have been amended. And Ms. Klein has made some statements in her submissions that I wouldn't call accurate. For example, she says that Bay Street is owned by the town. There are a handful of roads that are actually owned by municipalities, and I have not found any evidence to suggest that Bay Street is one of them. But in terms of what she is saying, that would have been supplanted by the funnel ordinance, right? And so that's what would govern the town's interpretation in this instance, is what the funnel ordinance says. Now, the critical question here is density in duplexes, and Taylor is absolutely permitted in its right to, it is the owner of this property, to develop this property to have 4 duplexes.
But the funnel ordinance means that you can take people from all over the community and bring them to a beach, right?
Well, no, the funnel ordinance, your funnel ordinance is saying the opposite of that. It is saying, if I have it here in my notes, lots which are adjacent to the shoreline or any lake, pond are prohibited from granting, leasing, or otherwise conveying rights for water access to any other lot except as permitted in Article XXIB, which is open space development. So the funnel ordinance is saying, just because you own waterfront property doesn't mean you can grant rights to other people. But we're not talking about other people, we're talking about 2 lots that Taylor owns. And one of the solutions potentially to the funnel ordinance is Taylor can just merge the lots and then it's just 1 lot.
But aren't, maybe I misunderstand, but isn't the beachfront area meant for all Taylor citizens? So really, technically, it should only be utilized by the people that would be in the duplexes, correct?
I think that is one way in which you could interpret the funnel ordinance. That's an interpretation that we would disagree with.
Or what the court said. If they're not allowing you to look at it in its entirety.
But I think that case was a different issue here.
Okay.
And I understand your reading of the funnel ordinance. We would disagree with it because Taylor does own both lots here.
Okay.
I was going to ask about the Wolfeboro case too, but now I have a separate question because I would have maybe addressed it differently, but I think adequately well. My question is regarding, I mean, these are effectively 2 different uses though, and they're separated by a public way.
Yeah, but Taylor owns the center line of that public way.
That I can understand, but there's still two separate uses on two separate parcels. One is clearly elderly housing, the other one, at least under what this was proposed that was just denied, will not be elderly housing. This will be a residential use proposed, whether, it's a residential use, it's separate from Taylor's use on its other parcel. I feel as if the Wolfeboro versus Taylor community case from 2005 made it fairly clear, even though the properties were abutting, that they were separate uses and that they were separate parcels, and that you couldn't just have people being, bused or, using the facilities for a separate use from what was approved on the other one. It'd be like trying to have...
But that case is looking at uses, right? Such as elderly housing as a use, or single-family housing as a use, or restaurant as a use, right? We're not talking about a use when we're talking about the funnel part of that, right? If we are talking about a use, then it would just be an accessory use to the property that happens to be on the water.
Can I ask one follow-up to that? But wouldn't the use still be, so if these are individuals who are in the Taylor home community that are off of Bay Street that currently exists, this elderly housing, and then Taylor community is encouraging them to go recreate at this accessory use, on this parcel that's permitted as a residential use, wouldn't that be the elderly housing use, those people living in those elderly homes, utilizing an accessory use on a lot that's only permitted for residential uses?
Yeah, but part and parcel of having a residential use is you get to recreate on the property that you own, and Taylor owns the property. These individuals do not own the property. Taylor owns the property at all times, unless it sells the property.
Okay.
Or creates a condominium.
But the court case said you cannot hook together various independent living facilities. I mean, I'm not a lawyer and you are, but
It's like they're trying to bootstrap from what they have across the street to use that facility on the other side of the street, when in fact, again, I bring you back to the fact it's two different parcels of land. It's two different, it's one ownership.
But in two different permitted
but it's
uses.
Two different uses and two different parcels.
And both trying to use the same accessory, the beach is an accessory use, it's an accessory recreation facility.
Yeah, I mean, without conceding a point here, if it's the case that the zoning board decides that Taylor is correct on the density and is wrong on the funnel ordinance, then I haven't talked to Taylor about it, but I think they would probably be okay with that. The issue here is the density, right? But if we're going to deny everything, then okay, then we'll appeal everything. And so I understand the board's points. I understand that it is a more nuanced question than density, and I'll grant you that. But for us, the crucible here, the crux of the issue here is density in 4 lots.
Well, I remind the board we've got
4 duplexes. So.
two issues. And we're going to have to decide on the density, duplex density, and then the waterfront usage.
And they're separate issues,
even though it's on one application, they're two separate sections. So I suggest we deal with them one at a time.
And for sure, it is entirely possible that the board splits the baby on this, to use biblical terms. We think we're right on the funnel ordinance, but I understand it's a more nuanced question.
Well, we'd have to, I think, vote on them separately.
No, that's
Correct.
exactly what I'm saying, yes.
Okay.
Is there any other questions about the density component of this or the funnel ordinance component of this?
no.
Yeah. So how do you square, I know you've been through the different categories of housing and different requirements, but how do you square, how do you square multiple duplexes on one parcel regardless of the acreage over 1 acre, if it's not an allowed use. Like, you can have, you could just have applied for multifamily housing. You've got another use you could use there.
We could have applied for residential apartments, true.
So, you're trying to argue that multiple duplexes equate to something like multifamily housing on?
No.
No?
What I'm saying is that there are parts of this zoning ordinance, such as the, let me just find my notes, the village residential district, for example, that expressly say you can only have 1 duplex per lot. The central business district says the same thing. The Bay Street Limited Business District, and I think there's also the Wolfeboro Limited Business District, do not contain that limitation. And when you're interpreting an ordinance, it's a law. It's the way you do it is saying, okay, the legislature, the planning board with the vote of the townspeople, they know how to limit duplexes to 1 duplex per lot. They've done it in 7 other districts. And so what the court says is because they know how to do that, we have to assume that they intentionally did not do so here. Because otherwise they would have. Yes.
I was going to ask, and this is for the planners, rather than assume what the voters wanted, do all of our districts expressly carve that out? Could this just be more along the lines of with the master plan thinking that duplexes, that the citizens didn't want like a lot of dense housing like this in the downtown area, or does every single district carve it out specifically? And he's correct that in not mentioning it, it was basically saying it's okay. Do we know?
So some of the zoning districts, he is correct, do say a single duplex. I don't remember the exact words, but I can find it.
We know how Roger defined it, the duplex versus duplexes.
Right, so in this district, it says duplex dwelling, period.
Duplex,
Yep.
Singular. It says
Correct,
duplex
singular,
dwelling, so it
correct.
is specific.
In
It
some
is
of the
specific.
other,
There's a,
It
for
wasn't
example,
left
I found, in the Pine Hill District, what they allow is 1 duplex dwelling per lot. They
right.
spell it out specifically. So the
right,
point
so there is, right,
You will either allow 1 per lot, or you allow duplex dwellings, period.
dwelling. Those are the
Dwelling,
two
or dwellings.
notations for duplexes that exist. 1 duplex dwelling per lot or duplex dwelling.
So it was specified in
The planning board thought so.
Okay.
The ordinance specifies that duplex dwelling is allowed within this district. The Bay Street Limited Business District does not say 1 duplex per lot, it just says duplex dwelling, which is the singular version. And so then we go back to how the ordinance is interpreted, which is 175, 174, where the town said that the singular version includes the plural version includes the singular. So it does say duplex dwellings.
It doesn't say dwellings.
It does say dwellings. It does say dwellings because of the way the ordinance is interpreted under the usage requirement.
No,
It doesn't use plural.
It doesn't, it's not plural.
In the Bay Street.
But
In the Bay Street, it doesn't
if
use
you
plural.
kind of follow me on this, most ordinances and most laws have a usage requirement, usage essentially means this is how we want our ordinance to be interpreted, right? That when you're looking at the ordinance, here's what we want. And if you go to definitions and word usage, which is right in Article XXVI, the first one, word usage, it says in the second sentence,
So it's section 175, 174.
the singular number includes the plural, and the plural, the singular. So because the singular includes the plural, dwelling does mean dwellings. You're looking at me quizzically, but I did not write the ordinance.
Well, it
And I
does-
can
it
tell you
does.
that this is common in all ordinance. And the reason it's common is because you don't want a typographical error to limit property rights, which can happen.
Okay, it does say that, but it also says, where terms are not defined in this article, they shall have their ordinary accepted meanings or such as the context may apply. So the planning board chose to take an ordinary meaning in the context of what the history has been that they understand it to be. That's what they did.
Yeah, but no, what the planning board did, they didn't take context. What the planning context would be saying what's appropriate. What the planning board did was say, well, there's other provisions in this town that say 1 duplex per lot, so we're going to assume that that applies to every single district.
Well, you know what we do with this book? Is we have to go to this section to see what that section means.
Oh, I get it.
So that's, they're accustomed
I
to having to
understand
do
that,
that,
but-
and that's what they did. Now, I will go back to one more thing that I always say. We have prescriptive zoning.
Sure.
Maybe someone chose to leave that out, that they can have multiple duplexes in Bay Street. They chose to leave it out, to eliminate it, because they didn't want to prescribe it.
I think that's exactly my point. The voters of Wolfeboro could have decided that, and as they have in 7 other
They could
districts.
have, but they didn't want to, so they didn't allow for it. They didn't allow for
No,
duplex.
but they did allow for it by leaving it out because
No, prescriptive, that's what prescriptive does, it leaves stuff out on purpose. It does.
Suze,
In that case,
can we let him finish?
If that's the argument, though, then the idea that other parts of the ordinance, which say 1 duplex per lot, that's just superfluous, right? We also can't read an ordinance to be or to have any type of superfluity, right? There's a way a court's going to read this. In the town of Kudra case, which I told you about, Conway was also a prescriptive ordinance and it had a similar issue. And the court said, the absence of language in one statutory provision that is present in another is a strong indication that the legislature did not intend the same result. And critically, I'm adding the critically, the court will not judicially supply this omission in the absence of legislative intent to do so. The court's not going to jump in and say, well, we think that the town may have met 1 duplex per lot, because it is not going to guess what the voters of Wolfeboro wanted, because the clearest indication of what the Wolfeboro voters wanted is what they have voted for. And why it's set up this way, I can really only hazard a guess, but again, go back to the master plan. And your master plan is maybe offering some illumination as to why this is the case, and it instructs the planning board to review, to quote, review and consider increasing the residential density requirements for a variety of housing types in areas with sewer and water, which include the Central Business District, the Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District, and the Bay Street Limited Business District. And critically, the Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District is another section in the ordinance that has almost identical language to the Bay Street Limited Business District, and that the Wolfeboro Limited Business District, Wolfeboro Falls Limited Business District, does not include language saying 1 duplex per lot.
Okay.
So I can understand, if I may.
I've got an idea.
Can I ask my question?
I've got no, I think we've questioned and answered back and forth for 20, 30 minutes.
Can I make one little point?
No, just let me go with this and then you either thumbs up or down. I'm hearing thrown around here, the court said, the court said, the court said. We have not had our own investigation into what the courts say. We have not talked to our attorney about what our ordinance says and what the courts say in relationship to our ordinance. I would like for us to continue this application to discuss with our attorney under non-meeting, specifically the question of multiple duplexes on one lot and the use of the waterfront, the two that you've asked for in your application. The, what was it? 175, 104, and 175, 52. No, and those are the two that you want an answer on, correct?
Well, those are part
That's
of the
what's on your
appeal.
application.
Yeah, those are the appeal.
You're going to
yeah.
change it to anything else?
I can't. It's part of the appeal.
All right, so that's what I'd like to speak to our attorney on.
Do we know if the planning board spoke to the attorney?
What? I didn't hear you, Sabat.
I said, do we know if the planning board spoke?
Wait, turn to me.
Do we know if the planning board spoke to an attorney?
They have their own attorney, we have our own attorney, and it's a conflict to have the same attorney.
Okay.
So I've made a motion to continue until July 20.
Suze, can I just ask him
To
one more question, and then I'll support your motion? I just want to ask him to. Can I ask one more question?
Tell you what, I'll second the motion, and then we can have discussion.
Okay.
Now, discussion.
Well, I just to summarize what and correct me if I'm wrong, your belief is that because that language that's in some of the other districts where it says per lot, because that's not in there, and even though it's in the singular because of 175, 174 that says anything in the singular is plural, anything in the plural is singular, that was the legislative intent, even though it's singular for that district. Is that this, if I were to summarize your argument on the density?
I mean, correct.
Okay.
If it says dwelling, it means dwellings.
That's all. I just wanted to
Okay,
best
I'd like to
understand
call
it.
the vote.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
Motion for continuance until the July 20th.
Yes.
Brody, yes.
Yes.
Ryan, yes.
Yes.
Yes. Sabat? Yes. Okay. So, that's it for tonight on that. We're approaching 9 o'clock. Where am I?
You haven't been to the zoning board until you think a couple of times.
Yeah, they got to rewrite all these ordinances.
All right, now.
What are you thinking, going?
Might be continued.
Yeah, well, we're going to start it, right? You're going to start.
Bye, thank you. Okay. See you in July.
So we're going to hear these?
No, I'm gonna open the meeting based on the calculations that you mentioned.
Oh.
Let's see, Howard, welcome, we're gonna put you on this case. No? It's only, it's. Sabat knows it better than I do. Okay. Okey dokey. All right, so, I'm going to tell you where I'm going with this. And you may not want to do that whole presentation.
Okay.
Okay? So I'll have to open this anyway, but
Sure.
it looks like we might have to continue this.
Okay.
All right? And it's approaching 9 o'clock, so we may anyway.
Is that the cutoff?
So what I'm going to do is open it for you to do your presentation, and then I'd like to point out to you some inconsistencies that may be an issue that you can fix and probably continue.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. So you may go ahead and start
okay.
with your name and
Okay,
tell
all right.
us who you represent and who
Sure.
you work for and.
So I'm Jason
Wait,
Beckwith.
Sue, I'm apologizing. We did a site visit. Chuck, would you report the site visit?
I'd be glad to. Looks like the entire board was at the site. Thank you. Right. In any case, Suzanne, Brody, Sabette, Jody, myself, and Howard later on attended for the board. We met Gary Bissett, a neighbor. We met Matt Berger, owner, and we met you, Jason Beckwith, builder. We walked the property. We saw a stake that marked the forward position of the front corner of the proposed structure. We also walked over to the property line and tried to align the neighbor's deck with the corner of the proposed building just to get an idea of his sight line. Got a good idea of where everything stood, and we are prepared to discuss it tonight. Respectfully submitted, Chuck Sumner.
Okay, and then typically I read into the record the non-conforming structures. This is not use, this is structure. And the purpose. The purpose of this section under 175-43A, 1, small a, is to establish and distinguish between permitting requirements with respect to building permits, special exceptions, and variances regarding expansion or extension of existing non-conforming structures. So that's 175-43. Yes, go ahead now. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Jason Beckwith with Beckwith Builders, representing Matt Berger. The purpose of the project is to remove an existing non-conforming house that is intruding over the sideline setbacks and construct a new single-family residence that is more nearly conforming, so it'll have less square footage over the lot lines, and it will not intrude any further than the existing house. The new design calls for a second story, which triggers the special exception need to expand a height beyond 25%. There was a little discussion with the neighbors that it could be obstructing their view, so we tried to bring it back by a maximum of 12 feet. That's the most we could, 5 feet, that's the most we could do. Any further, and then we ended up encroaching further into that sideline setback, which would then not be allowed based on the rules. The areas that are being expanded by 25% are here, which are overlaid in this area, and then this back corner. And those are the two areas that would be expanded by a greater than 25%. But we are not expanding the nonconformity, we're actually reducing it, making it more nearly conforming. To go through the 8 criteria for the special exception, the site suitability is the adequate space and access and environmental constraints. It's about the same location as the existing home, more or less the same size, and it will not encroach further into the side setbacks and will be made more nearly conforming. And there are no environmental constraints with the proposed project. For number 2, immediate neighborhood impact. The use is the same as a single-family residence. There's already a house on there. So due to that, there won't be any change in excessive trip generation, noise, vibration, dust, glare, or heat, smoke fumes, gas, odors, or inappropriate hours of operation. Number 3, there will be no undue nuisance or serious hazard to pedestrian or vehicular traffic, including the location or design of access ways or off-street parking. There will be a new driveway, which will create smoother access to the site location, and the use will be the same as a single-family residence, so it's not going to increase any traffic within the area. And as you saw getting there, it's pretty private, so it's not going to affect any public vehicular traffic. The availability of public services, the house will be having a new well and new septic system. And the house is currently the only one on the road utilizing town water. So if this gets approved with the new well, then the town won't have to keep on maintaining that. And stormwater management will be addressed with a drip line edge, and that's also due to impervious area being at 18%. The appropriateness of site plan consideration, given the following: parking scheme, traffic circulation, open space, fencing, screening, landscaping, signage, commercial vehicles, lighting impact. A lot of these kind of pertain to more commercial use, but it does show the location of the approximate driveway, and parking will be utilized with the driveway and a proposed garage. Immediate neighborhood integrity. The use is the same as the others within the neighborhood. They're all single-family residents, and there won't be any change to that. Impact on property values. Same thing, it's the same use as a single-family residence. It might be a big improvement, aesthetically speaking, and could help it actually improve some of the other neighboring property values, and we've moved it back to help alleviate the possible obstruction of the abutter's view. The proposed use and structure is consistent with the spirit and the master plan by making the lot more nearly conforming and reducing the area that is out over the sideline setbacks. And I went through it, just kind of thinking ahead for the shoreline permit, and we're okay with proposed impervious areas and unaltered areas. We're within the limits there, and we're reducing the nonconformity by about 23 square feet. And the height increases are within the allowable tolerances of the shoreline residential ordinances.
Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public would like to speak either for or against? I see one hand raised. I see two hands raised.
Hello, my name is Barry Bissett, 63 Crooked Pond Lane. I'm the next door neighbor. So what we didn't do is go in my house and look out the window. Like, I have windows on the side of my house and I can see the water. And I'm taxed on my water view. And believe me, I paid my bill today. That hurt. So even for a small house, it was something. So as I look at this, you go from non-conforming to non-conforming. Just whatever. Okay, so it's not so much there, it's more here. My issue is, the house is here, and now it's, look at that corner. 25, 30 feet. It's one thing to see that green spike in the ground. It's a different thing when I'm looking out and I see 30 feet of wall in my face. And this is awkward for me. He's my neighbor. Believe me, we're close. I mean, I'm not, when you drive in. I mean, we're like right there. So this is really awkward I've never had to, I want to be a good neighbor. And I'm, looking for some compromise, building a house, please. Someday I'm going to be here, I hope. So, it's that my only issue is going forward. Because the setbacks don't meet now, they're not going to meet later, whatever. It's all about the water presence and your water view. And honestly, how many houses get to move, Jay Polini next to me, he didn't get to go within 75 feet. TJ, I mean, he's 100, probably 100 plus. I don't know. The only thing I'm looking for is maybe not have a wall of house like moved up. That's all.
Okay.
That's it.
I saw the other gentleman raise his hand.
Yes, thank you. So, I want to be a good neighbor. I'm on the other side. TJ Palmer, 57 Crooked Pond Lane. And I just want to state for the record that the distance from the non-conforming structure right now is only 10 feet from the property line. I'm willing to certainly support Matt, the current owner, in continuing to be only 10 feet. So because I want to be a good neighbor, we put up hemlocks there, so it's really not an issue for the Palmers. The fact that it's not conforming now and that it won't be non-conforming, the side. In terms of how close it is to the water, what is the rule on that? Is it 75 feet? What is the town rule for how far a house should be from the water?
50 feet.
50 feet?
It's 50? Okay, it's 50. So you folks were out there, so Matt and I, we walked the property, and he showed me. And so I put actually those stakes in with the green. So that's probably my wife and I, our only concern is that the proposal, the way it is right now, how close it is to the water. I leave that to you. If those stakes are 50 feet or more, then I'm totally fine with that. And I support that. I just wanted to make sure that the line wasn't moved. That's really the concern. So the side setback at 10 feet, non-conforming, I'm in favor of that as a neighbor on that side. The other side of Barry, I'm also in favor of how close it is to the water, as long as it's 50 feet or more. And I put those stakes in the ground to delineate that. And I trust my neighbor, Matt, that he would follow through on that. And also Beckwith Builder, who's here, that they would follow that line. I wouldn't want to come out and find out that the place was moved, 15 or 20 feet more, because that is the issue of now it's the view of the lake. So right now, I don't have any problem with the way I understand it's set up. I think that's it. You saw the stakes, so that's great. Thank you. Thank you for your time. You're working hard tonight.
Thank you.
Would the applicant like to respond or add some information?
Yes, please. So we originally did try to move it back even further than the 5 feet. I tried to move it back to 12 feet, and then that would be another special exception of an expansion of a non-conforming, and I got to 22% with that, so we were within the limits. It was the fact that we were then encroaching further into the setback that made it not allowable to do that. So that's where the hard limit of 5 feet came from that. I also want to make note that all this is all allowable buildable footprint. Where that stake is, we're allowed to do that. We're allowed to have the height up to where it is. The special exception is really just for this side area and this back corner triangle of increasing it above 25%. And those areas back there aren't going to affect his view, as that's already an existing area and that's far back from the sight lines from his house. So those were my points also.
Okay. There may be an issue with how you applied or what you used for criteria to apply under 175-43. I don't know if you have a copy of that whole section. There is the subsection A through J. So I'd like to address C, 175-43C.
Yep.
And 175-43J.
Yep.
And on your application, you just put 175-43. So looking through this, and we wrestle with this section all the time.
Yep.
C says, any non-conforming portion of a building or structure may be extended no more than 25% of the non-conforming building or structure, but with no further intrusion into the setback area. And it looks like that your calculations don't show that. It looks like you're stepping outside of your footprint by a little bit.
Right, and that's typically allowed. So we've done one before where it was with the 50-foot, so where we're 20 feet from the lake, we could bring it back but expand it sideways within that 50-foot. And I had a conversation with Joel and Jeff here, kind of going through each one and trying to figure out which of these we were applying for. And
Well, I guess then I'll have to ask Jeffrey to weigh in on this because I don't know how to explain it any differently.
Yeah, when we, and we did have that conversation, when I received this submission, working with the applicant to try to put a solid proposal together, the final product I think is very good. There are just two questions that I have, and they're primarily associated. One's with C and one's with J. The one question that I have related to C is I saw two setback distances. There was a setback distance from the existing house to the from the existing house going to the north property line that showed 12 feet, and there was another distance that was 11 feet 9 inches. But I was curious about where both of those measurements were from. What portion of the structure?
from the eaves.
From the
of house.
eaves.
Yes.
And the second piece was associated with J. In the lower right-hand corner, okay, so J is related to the vertical expansion. C is more of a horizontal expansion. J is more of a vertical expansion. And one of the important differences between C and J, with C, you are anything from 0 to a 25% expansion in that non-conforming area requires a special exception permit. You go over 25%, that gets into the variance territory. So that's C. With J, you're allowed 0 to 25% with just code enforcement with internal review. Then once you go 25% or to infinity, there's no limit to it, that's when it triggers the special exception. The difficulty that I had is it looks like there are estimates as to what the percentages are for J. I think what the board really needs is the exact percentage of what that vertical expansion is to determine whether it truly conforms or not. So just more specific numbers on.
Right, we were talking about that 25% or greater. Is that, you know, if the building is 10 feet high, you know, is it the height of the building or is it the square footage of that? Can you add 25% of that square footage that's over it? But I think either way we'd be over 25%.
I think so too, and we just need that specific percentage, or I recommend that the ZBA get.
But for her point with the encroachment, it's, I understand what she's saying. This area here where we weren't originally, we are now going in. But in the past, when we had this, and I think it kind of says it with E a little bit, is you're just taking the biggest distance from here. And as long as you're not going over that greatest, or I guess in this case, shortest distance, as long as you're not encroaching further than that, then it's okay.
Yep.
And that we're not triggering C because we're not expanding the nonconformity, we're reducing it.
You are over the footprint.
But we're not encroaching further. The point of encroachment is just that whatever the closest point is. So in the past, when it was with a 50-foot setback rather than the sideline setbacks, we were, only 10 feet part of the building was within 20 feet. We brought that back, but expanded those to 40 feet.
Well, but there's not that bad in the ordinance. It says, but with no further intrusion into the setback. And that is using the building structure footprint, and you are.
And I think what we were looking for is just to ensure, to identify the setbacks for the existing structure right throughout, and to ensure that that proposed structure is no closer than the existing structure is to the property lines.
We need you to reconcile your numbers with C and J. And so that's why I would like to propose, and I'd also like to, again, talk to our attorney about how we're interpreting this ordinance.
Yeah, I wish I had the example from previous to show that the encroachment is just at one point. So like, if the 50-foot was here along this edge, we could bring back this part of the house. We're not encroaching further, but still extend this side part within that 50-foot.
Well, it's
As long as we're not going above this critical point here, that is the closest. That's your encroachment.
I would suggest, rather than you trying to draw it now on paper there, that you meet with Jeffrey before our next meeting and get this reconciled.
Okay. And then
It's up to you how you want, how you end up, where you end up doing what. And for us to try to sit here, we're not engineers. So, does the board agree for a continuance on this, and also to talk to the attorney again about this section? And then the applicant can meet with Jeffrey and square it away. I'll make a motion to continue to July,
I wanted to get Jeffrey's thoughts a little bit more.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, I said I want to get Jeffrey's thoughts a little bit more because it seemed like Jeffrey might have advised on what was presented to us tonight by the applicant. Is that okay? I mean, I'm okay with a continuance, but while we're here, I'd like to just hear if Jeffrey has more fleshed out thoughts on what we're presented with and how it interplays with.
We've had trouble with this. We need to.
I've watched a lot. Yes, I know.
You know.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just going to make a motion to continue to, what's our next meeting, July 20th?
20th.
Here in the town hall, 6 o'clock. Do I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sure.
Aye. That's unanimous. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
It's the ordinance's fault.
That's where I would spend a lot of time.
It's not your fault. Okay,
So you want to reconcile this piece here?
yeah, see, that line there, right? Currently they're over. Currently they're over, but they're going over more with this and up here. This is a layover. They laid it over. If they could bring, well, it's not time. They could bring that back to help that guy. All right, the other item on the agenda was discussion of ZBA rules of procedure. You know, I just would like to make a motion that we just change the time. Sorry. I'd just like to make a motion. It would be the first, we have to do this twice, but just to change the time that we consider ending a meeting so that the applicants and the public know that it's not 10 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock.
I second that.
Thank you, Savette. So can we be in agreement that we won't start a new application after 9 o'clock?
Well, that's effectively what we're doing right now,
That's what we
so.
just did,
Just-
yep.
Just for purposes of anybody watching, we used to start at 7 and end
Yeah,
at 10.
yeah.
Now we're starting
Start
at
at
6, so
6.
it's still the same amount of
I agree.
time.
Yes.
We just never
Yes.
changed it.
Yes, and we have to vote on this twice. So all those in favor of amending the Articles of Agreement to change the concluding time, the adjourning time from 10 to 9?
Aye.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think
Yes.
it's unanimous.
Unanimous, okay.
Susan-
And then at the next meeting, it will be on the agenda again to solidify that.
I had a request. I was wondering if we wanted to ask Jeffrey to make recommendations for potential, for our bylaws, the rules and procedures, for potential recommended changes that he thinks our board should have to this document.
If you want to make any changes, any board member is welcome to bring in a first draft of changes that they would like to see.
No, I said, I don't know if you heard me, Suze. I said I would like to see if Jeffrey, if the town planner has any recommended changes.
planner, I didn't
Yeah,
hear
not
that.
me. I know I could bring forward anything, but I'd like to see what Jeffrey, because Jeffrey's seen us operate.
Oh.
I'd like to see if Jeffrey has any suggestions for ways to
I would
optimize our
imagine
work.
eventually, like you said, it would be nice to have a work session. So I think if and when he, in 2-3 months from now, when he has spare time, he could do that,
Yeah.
but this is not
No,
priority.
okay.
And I would just add, I mean, one thing I would suggest looking at, because I was looking at rules of procedure for another board that I'm on, and we don't have anything about responsibilities of like what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to do. There usually is a description of the role of a chair, the vice chair, the secretary, right? Is that what you are, the secretary?
He's a clerk.
And I just noticed that that was missing. Some of that is museum. Oh, okay, because I didn't see that. I just saw.
Well, there is. You're the one that typed it up.
I know, but I don't remember seeing the roles.
It says officers. It's on the first page.
It does say roles in there? I'm sorry, I looked over it and I missed it again.
My personal opinion is I think our rules of,
Okay, you know what? Not only does this document need work,
yeah.
but all our applications need a lot of work. So that's why I say a work session maybe after the summer and get into this. And maybe some of the applications will be a little easier going forward now that we've got Jeffrey to sit with the applicant.
Better get him before he goes.
Oh, no. Okay, so I make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Savette.